The first voicemail came at 2:47 a.m, then another at 3:12. By the time I finally woke up at 6:30, there were 8 missed calls from a blocked number and 3 texts saying only, "London, please." I'm London Mitchell, and that morning was the beginning of the end of everything I thought I knew about family. "They're going to kill me, sis," Jermaine's voice cracked through the speaker. Background noise suggested he was moving, probably pacing. I messed up so bad. My stomach dropped as I listened through each message, his desperation escalating with everyone. The final voicemail was just breathing and what sounded like crying. I called him back immediately, no answer. I tried 3 more times before he finally picked up. "Where are you?" I demanded. "I can't say. These guys, they're serious. I owe them 50 grand by tonight or—" His voice trailed off. $50,000. What the hell did you do?" "It started small, just sports betting, then crypto. I thought I could double it, triple it even, but it kept getting worse and—" "Who exactly are these guys?" He gave me a name and number. My hands shook as I wrote it down. "Just, please help me, London. I don't know what else to do." I closed my eyes, fighting the urge to scream. That money was my escape plan. The down payment on the bakery I dreamed of opening since culinary school. 10 years of overtime shifts and living like a hermit, all of it sitting in my emergency fund. "I'll figure something out," I said finally. "Stay where you are." The number belonged to someone called Marcus. When he answered, his voice was eerily professional. "This is about Jermaine Mitchell's debt. Ah yes, your brother's been quite creative with excuses. Tonight's deadline isn't negotiable. I can pay it, all of it, but I need proof this ends here." He chuckled. "Smart girl. Come to the address I'll text you. Bring cash." The next few hours were a blur of bank visits and ATM withdrawals. Each time I handed over another stack of bills, I felt physically ill. I met Marcus in a coffee shop of all places. He wore a crisp suit and could have passed for any other businessman having morning coffee. The only tell was the thick scar running along his jaw. 50,000, I said, sliding the envelope across the table. "Count it." He did, methodically, then pulled out his phone and sent a text. "Your brother's debt is cleared. Tell him to find a new hobby." I found Jermaine at his girlfriend Vera's apartment. She opened the door looking perfectly put together, as if her fiancé hadn't spent the night running from loan sharks. "Oh, thank God," Jermaine rushed to hug me. "I knew you'd help, you always do." Vera stood back examining her manicure. "Want some coffee, London?" "No, I want you both to listen carefully." I pulled away from Jermaine. That was every cent of my savings, the money for my bakery, gone. "I'll pay you back, I swear. Things are looking up at work and—" "Stop. I don't want promises. I want you to get help, real help, for the gambling." Vera rolled her eyes. "He just had a rough patch. Everyone goes through those." "A rough patch doesn't end with thugs threatening your life." I turned back to my brother. "This is the last time, Jermaine. I mean it." He nodded eagerly. "I know, sis. I'm done with all that. The wedding's in 2 weeks, and then everything changes. New chapter, right, babe?" Vera smiled, wrapping her arms around him. Something in her expression made my skin crawl. That evening, I was updating my now decimated budget when my phone buzzed. A photo notification from Jermaine's Instagram. My thumb hovered over it for a moment before opening. There they were, my brother and his new wife, sprawled on pristine white loungers in what was clearly an overwater bungalow. Crystal glasses of champagne caught the Bora Bora sunset. The caption read, "Starting forever in paradise with my queen, war honeymoon vibes, war blessed." I stared at my phone until the screen went dark, then checked my bank account again. The balance stared back, 247,31 Lind. Another notification popped up, a text from Vera. "Thanks for everything, sis. Don't worry about the wedding gift. Saving Jermaine's life was more than enough. Although, if you're feeling generous, we did see this adorable matching luggage set." I blocked her number before I could read the rest. Then I opened my laptop and started searching for identity theft lawyers. Something told me I was going to need one. 3 days into their honeymoon, I got the alert. Someone had withdrawn $2,000 from my checking account. My hands trembled as I called the bank. Yes, Ms. Mitchell, the withdrawal was made using your debit card at an ATM in French Polynesia. That's impossible. My card is right here. I pulled it from my wallet to double-check. Actually, this was from the joint account you share with... There was typing. Jermaine Mitchell. The joint account. The one I'd opened when Mum was sick, so Jermaine could help with medical bills. I'd completely forgotten about it. I need that account frozen, now. I'm sorry, but both account holders need to... I hung up and dialed Jermaine. It went straight to voicemail. I texted, "Call me, now." An hour later, my phone rang. "Hey, sis!" His voice was bright, carefree. "You won't believe how amazing it is here. Vera's getting a massage and I just... Why did you take money from the joint account?" "Oh, that! Yeah, sorry about that. Total accident. I thought I was using our honeymoon fund card, but they all look the same, you know." "Accident? Jermaine, you withdrew $2,000. "Did I? Shit. My bad. Look, things are just a little tight right now with the resort charges. I'll pay you back as soon as we get home and things settle down." "Things are tight because you're at a 5-star resort after I just paid off your gambling debt." "London, come on. It's my honeymoon. What was I supposed to do, take Vera to Atlantic City?" Before I could respond, I heard Vera's voice in the background. "Baby, who are you talking to?" "It's just London." "Oh, perfect. Let me talk to her." There was shuffling, then Vera's syrupy voice filled my ear. "London, I'm so glad you called. Listen, I hate to ask, but we're in a tiny situation." "No." "You haven't even heard what it is yet." She laughed, but it was brittle. "The credit card company is being absolutely ridiculous about our charges here. Something about unusual activity. They've declined our last 3 purchases." "That sounds like a you problem." "Don't be like that. We're family now, and it's just the honeymoon credit card debt. Once we're back, we'll figure everything out. Jermaine says you're amazing with budgets." I ended the call and opened my banking app. The joint account had been emptied completely, all $6,000 gone. My finger hovered over the close account button, but a notification popped up. "Action requires all account holders' authorization." Cursing, I grabbed my keys and drove to the bank. The manager, a kind-faced woman named Patricia, pulled up my accounts. "I see several linked accounts here," she said, frowning at her screen. "The joint checking we discussed, a savings account opened in 2012 and... Oh. What? There's a credit card listed under your social security number, opened in 2015. I never opened a credit card in 2015. She turned the monitor toward me. There it was, a platinum rewards card with a $15,000 limit. Current balance, $14,987. Recent charges include... Patricia squinted. 4 nights at the St. Regis Bora Bora, spa services, dining. The room started spinning. I gripped the edge of her desk. "I need to see every account linked to my social security number, everything." Patricia typed away, her expression growing more concerned. "Ms. Mitchell, there appear to be multiple credit lines opened in your name over the past 7 years. Most are maxed out or close to it." How much total?" She calculated quickly. "Just over $70,000 in credit card debt alone." My phone buzzed. Another text from Vera. "The front desk is being so rude about the payment situation. Can you call them? Pretty please." I looked back at Patricia. "I need to report fraud, and I need a very good lawyer." She nodded gravely and reached for a form. "Before we begin the fraud report, I should mention the primary address on most of these accounts is 1242 Maple Street, apartment 3B. My blood ran cold. That was my old address from college. The one Jermaine had lived at with me for 6 months when he needed a fresh start. The same address he'd used to open that first credit card in my name, apparently. My phone buzzed again. A photo from Vera. Her and Jermaine in matching spa robes, cucumber slices on their eyes, champagne flutes in hand. The caption read, "Living our best life. Thanks for everything, sis." I saved the photo. Evidence. Then I called Kian, my ex who worked in fraud investigation. It was time to stop being the protective big sister and start being something else entirely, something they wouldn't see coming. Kian's office hadn't changed in the 2 years since we'd broken up. Same cramped space, same wall of case files, same terrible coffee maker in the corner. "You look like hell," he said, gesturing for me to sit. "Thanks, you look exactly the same." He smiled, but it faded as I spread the bank statements across his desk. "Talk to me." "My brother and his new wife are in Bora Bora, spending money from accounts I didn't know existed, in my name." Kian studied the documents, his jaw tightening. "How long?" 7 years of credit cards, plus they drained a joint account I forgot about yesterday. "And you're sure it was them?" I pulled up Vera's latest Instagram story. Another luxury resort photo tagged with "Ye blessed." "Pretty sure." "Okay." He leaned back. "Here's what you need to do right now. Pull every penny you have from any account they might know about, today, before they land back in the country." "But the joint account." "Forget authorization. Go to the bank in person and tell them you suspect fraud. They'll freeze it, but first withdraw whatever's left." I checked my phone. "There's still $6,000 in there." "Then what are you doing here? Go, now." I was at the bank 20 minutes later. Patricia recognized me immediately. "Back so soon?" "I need to withdraw everything from the joint account, all of it." She frowned at her screen. "It shows a pending transfer." "Cancel it, please, it's fraud." Her fingers flew across the keyboard. "Done. Would you like the withdrawal in cash or—" "Cashier's check, made out to me only." While she processed the paperwork, my phone rang. Vera's number. "London! Thank God, the hotel is being absolutely horrible. They're saying our cards aren't working and they might have to call the authorities." "Sounds stressful." "This isn't funny. They're threatening to call the police. You have to help us." "No, I don't. But we're family, and if they call the police—" "Then you'll have to explain why you're using fraudulent credit cards opened in my name." Silence. Then, in a completely different tone, "You wouldn't dare report us. Watch me." I hung up as Patricia returned with the check. "All set. I've also flagged the account for suspicious activity." Back at Kian's office, I found him surrounded by even more paperwork. "Got the money out?" I held up the check. "Just in time. They tried to transfer it while I was at the bank." "Good. Now look at this." He pointed to a credit report. "See these inquiries? They've been applying for new cards every few weeks. Getting desperate." My phone buzzed with texts from Jermaine. "Please don't do this. We can explain everything." "Mum would be so disappointed in you." That last one hit like a punch to the gut. Kian must have noticed my expression. "Don't let them manipulate you. This is textbook identity theft. They're counting on family loyalty to keep you quiet." "I know, but nothing. You know what happens to victims who stay quiet? They spend decades paying off debt they never created. They lose houses, jobs, everything." More texts flooded in. "The hotel security is here. They're saying they'll arrest us. Please, London, we're scared." "Look at me," Kian said firmly. "You're not responsible for their choices, but you are responsible for protecting yourself." I nodded slowly, then pulled up my banking app. One by one, I moved every dollar from my main accounts into a new account at a different bank, one Jermaine didn't know about. "What's next?" I asked. "We file a police report, then contact every credit bureau, then—" My phone rang again. Unknown number this time. "Ms. Mitchell, this is security at St. Regis Bora Bora. We have your brother and his wife here regarding some concerning credit card charges." "Yes, those cards were opened fraudulently. I'm filing a police report right now." "I see. And would you like to press charges?" I looked at Kian, who nodded firmly. "Yes," I said, my voice stronger than I felt. "Yes, I would." After I hung up, Kian started gathering the paperwork. "Ready to burn some bridges?" I thought about all the times I'd covered for Jermaine, all the money I'd given, all the dreams I'd put on hold. "They already lit the match," I said. I'm just making sure they go down in the flames. My phone buzzed one final time. A text from Vera. You'll regret this. Family is forever. I showed it to Kian, who smiled grimly. She's right about one thing. This is going to be forever, on their criminal record. For the first time in days, I smiled back. The call came at midnight. I let it go to voicemail, but they kept calling. On the 6th try, I answered. Please, Jermaine sobbed. They're holding our passports. We can't leave the country. That's generally what happens when you commit fraud. London, please don't do this. If they call Mum... Mum's been gone for 3 years, Jermaine. I meant her sister, Aunt Sarah. You know she can't handle stress since her heart surgery. This would kill her. Classic Jermaine, always finding someone else to use as emotional leverage. I heard shuffling, then Vera's voice came on. We'll pay everything back, she said. Just call off the fraud report, tell them it was a misunderstanding. Like you paid back the gambling debt? That was different. We were desperate then, but now Jermaine has this amazing job opportunity. Stop, just stop. I walked to my closet, pulling out an old shoebox. You know what I found today? Mum's old journals. What does that have to do with... There's an entry from 2012. She wrote about finding credit card applications in my name hidden in your room, Jermaine. You were doing this even back then. Silence on the line. She confronted you. You promised to stop. Sound familiar? I was just a kid then, he whispered. I didn't know better. You're not a kid anymore, and Vera certainly isn't. Vera's voice turned sharp. Don't you dare blame me for... 4 new credit cards were opened using my old address last month. After the honeymoon was booked, want to explain that? More silence. I pulled out Mum's last journal, the one from her final year. Mum wrote something else interesting, about how she kept enabling you because she felt guilty about Dad leaving, how she wished she'd been stronger. London, Jermaine's voice cracked. We're scared. The hotel manager says they're calling Interpol. Good, good. We could go to jail. Maybe that's exactly where you need to be. Vera grabbed the phone. Listen here, you self-righteous bitch. One call to Aunt Sarah about how you abandoned your baby brother in a foreign country and your whole responsible sister image is ruined. The family will never forgive you. I laughed, surprising even myself. You really don't get it, do you? I don't care anymore. About the image, the family drama, none of it. We'll tell everyone what a cold-hearted... Tell them! Tell everyone! Tell them how you stole my identity, how you took advantage of me for years, how you celebrated with champagne while drowning me in debt. Please, Jermaine was crying again, just help us one last time. I opened Mum's journal to the last entry, dated 3 days before her heart attack. I enabled him because I thought love meant never saying no. I was wrong. Real love is harder than that. Sometimes real love means letting them face consequences. You're right about one thing, I said. This is the last time, but not the way you think. I hung up and blocked both their numbers. Then I opened my laptop and began forwarding evidence to Kian. Screenshots of Vera's social media posts showing their lavish spending, bank statements, credit card applications. My phone lit up with a text from an unknown number, probably Vera using the hotel phone. Don't make us call Mum's sister, you know her heart can't take it. I stared at the message for a long moment, then did something I should have done years ago. I called Aunt Sarah myself. London, is everything okay? It's so late. I need to tell you something, about Jermaine, about everything. Oh, sweetheart. Her voice softened. I've been waiting for this call. You have? Your mother called me right before she passed. She told me to watch out for you because you'd sacrifice everything for your brother. She made me promise to be there when you finally realized you couldn't save him anymore. I felt tears starting. I thought everyone would hate me for turning him in. The only person hating you is yourself, dear, for not doing it sooner. My phone buzzed with another text from the hotel number. Final warning. Help us or Aunt Sarah hears everything tomorrow. I smiled through my tears and typed back, too late. I already told her everything. Your threats don't work anymore." Then I sent one final message. "Enjoy explaining the fraud charges to Interpol. I hear Tahitian prisons are lovely this time of year." I turned off my phone and looked at Mum's journal again. The last line caught my eye. "I hope London learns what I never could, that sometimes loving someone means letting them fall." For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt at peace with letting them fall. Hard. Finding Walker Steele was easier than I expected. One LinkedIn search led me to Vera's cousin, vice president at Morgan Stanley, marathon runner, and according to his profile, recently divorced. "This is unexpected," he said, studying me across the coffee shop table. "You're not exactly what I pictured when Vera talked about her sister-in-law." "Let me guess, she described me as a pathetic doormat?" He winced. "Something like that." "I need to know what you know about her, her history, her patterns." "Why should I help you?" I pulled out my phone and showed him the credit card statements. His eyes widened. "Jesus, she's still doing it." "Still?" Walker ran a hand through his hair. "Look, I shouldn't be telling you this, but Vera's done this before, twice. Different men, different cities, same scam." "Tell me everything." "First was in Seattle, guy named Marcus. She married him, maxed out his cards, opened new ones in his name. By the time he figured it out, she was gone." My coffee went cold as he continued. "Second was in Miami, Robert. Same pattern, but she got bolder. Convinced him to add her to his business accounts, nearly bankrupted his company. And nobody pressed charges. They were too embarrassed. Plus she's good at picking targets, guys with something to lose. Marcus had a high-profile job. Robert was running for local office. She knew they wouldn't want the publicity. But Jermaine has nothing to lose." Walker leaned forward. "No, but you do. Your credit, your savings, your reputation. You were the real target this time." My phone buzzed. Kian calling. "Hey, got a minute? Something weird came up in the fraud investigation." "What is it?" "That gambling debt you paid off. I ran the name Marcus through our database. No record of any loan shark or bookie. But what?" "There's a Marcus Thompson who filed fraud charges against Vera 3 years ago in Seattle, then suddenly dropped them." I looked at Walker. "You're Marcus?" He nodded grimly. "The gambling debt was fake," I said slowly. "They planned this from the start." "Classic Vera," Walker sighed. "Create a crisis, force a rescue, then exploit the rescuer." My phone buzzed again, an email notification from my credit monitoring service. New auto loan application detected. "They're still trying," I said, showing Walker, "even after getting caught. Because it's always worked before. Nobody ever fought back." I opened my laptop and pulled up Vera's Instagram. Look at this. Every post tagged with luxury brands, always mentioning family support or blessed with the best sister-in-law. Walker's eyes narrowed. "She's building a paper trail, making it look like you approved their spending." "Not anymore." I turned the screen to show him my draft email to the resort's corporate office, complete with evidence of the fraud. "You're really doing this? Going after your own brother?" "He stopped being my brother the moment he chose her scam over my trust." Walker was quiet for a moment. Then, "There's something else you should see." He pulled out his phone and opened his messages. "Vera's been texting me, trying to get me to invest in some business venture with them. Look at what she says about you." The screenshots made my blood boil. "London's such a doormat, lol." She actually believed the gambling story. "Poor thing has no backbone but great credit." "Send me those," I said. "All of them." "What are you going to do?" I smiled. "You said nobody ever fought back. Time to change that." My phone lit up with another credit alert. They'd tried opening a store card now. "They're getting desperate," Walker said. "Good. Desperate people make mistakes." I forwarded Walker's screenshots to Kian, then opened my email again. The resort's corporate security, the credit card companies, the FBI's financial crimes division, all would receive my evidence package by morning. You know this will destroy them, Walker warned. They destroyed themselves. I'm just making sure they can't destroy anyone else. As if on cue, my phone rang. Another unknown number. Probably another burner phone they'd borrowed. Want to know something funny? I said to Walker. For years I thought being a good sister meant protecting Jermaine from consequences. Turns out I was just protecting him from growing up. And now? I declined the call and turned off my phone. Now I'm protecting everyone else from him. Walker raised his coffee cup. To karma. No, I corrected him, to justice. Because karma might be patient, but I wasn't anymore. And by tomorrow, they'd learn exactly how much backbone I really had. The dominoes started falling at exactly 9:03 a.m. First, the credit card companies began closing accounts. Then the fraud alerts hit. By noon, Vera's Instagram was exploding. "Is this you?" Kian asked, sending me a link to a viral Twitter thread. Someone, definitely Walker, had leaked screenshots of Vera's texts mocking me, alongside photos of their luxury honeymoon. The caption read, "How to scam your way into Bora Bora." A thread, my phone rang. The resort's security director. "Ms. Mitchell, we've detained your brother and his wife, attempting to leave without settling their bill. They claim you authorised everything." "I have documentation proving otherwise. Check your email." "Already received it. Interpol has been notified." I hung up and opened Instagram. Vera's latest post had hundreds of comments. "Scammer." Poor London. "Can't believe they stole from their own sister." A text from Walker popped up. "It's trending. Ernie's wedding scammers." My laptop pinged with an email from the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit, confirming receipt of my evidence package. Another ping. The credit bureaus acknowledging my fraud alerts. Then came Jermaine's desperate voicemail. "The police are here. They're saying it's international fraud. Please, you have to tell them you approved this. London, please." I forwarded the voicemail to Kian, who replied instantly. "Don't respond. Let them dig their own grave." My doorbell rang. A courier with papers from my lawyer, restraining orders ready to sign. "Where do I—" "Right here," I pointed, "and here, and initial here." As I signed, my phone kept buzzing. Vera was using the hotel phone to send messages. "You bitch, you've ruined everything. We'll tell everyone what you did." I screenshot each threat and forwarded them to Kian. Walker called. "They're being escorted out of the resort. It's on TMZ." I pulled up the article. "Influencer couple caught in international fraud scheme. Sister exposes all." The photos showed Vera, mascara running, being led through the lobby. Jermaine following, head down. My lawyer called next. "The credit card companies are pressing charges. All of them. This is serious federal time." "Good. Your brother's asking to make a deal. Says he'll testify against Vera." Of course he was. Classic Jermaine, always looking for an escape route. Another text from Walker. "Check your email. You need to see this." It was a video. Vera, clearly drunk, ranting at the hotel bar last night. "That stupid sister of his, so easy to manipulate. Just mention their dead mum and she hands over everything. Pathetic, really." I forwarded it to my lawyer with one word. "Evidence?" "Perfect," she replied. "This proves premeditation." My phone lit up with an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "London?" It was Vera, but not the smooth, confident Vera I knew. This one was terrified. "They're taking us to the police station, in handcuffs." "Karma's not fun, is it?" "We can make a deal. I have dirt on Jermaine you wouldn't believe." "Save it for your plea bargain." I hung up and opened Twitter. The thread about them had gone viral, with people sharing similar stories. "She tried this in Seattle. Same scam in Miami. They targeted my cousin last year." Walker texted again. "Vera's influencer friends are all unfollowing her. Even her sponsored posts are being deleted." My doorbell rang again. This time it was a reporter. "Ms. Mitchell, we'd love to get your side of the story." I closed the door and called Kian. "How long until this dies down?" Dies down. London, this is just starting. International fraud, identity theft, social media influence. This is going to be huge. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, one of Vera's relatives. You've destroyed our family's reputation. I blocked the number and opened my email. The FBI wanted a formal statement. The credit card companies wanted sworn affidavits. The resort's lawyers wanted to talk. Then came the message that stopped me cold. From Aunt Sarah. We need to talk. There's something you should know about your mother's death and what Jermaine did after. I stared at those words, feeling the ground shift beneath me again. Just when I thought I'd uncovered all their lies, but that would have to wait. Right now, Interpol was calling. I answered, smiling grimly. Yes, I'd be happy to press charges, all of them. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't just serving karma. It's serving it with a side of justice, garnished with truth, and letting the whole world watch it being delivered. Aunt Sarah's house looked exactly as I remembered. Pristine lawn, wind chimes, ceramic gnomes standing guard. She opened the door before I could knock. You've lost weight, she said, pulling me into a hug that smelled like cinnamon and coffee. Come in, we need to talk. I followed her to the kitchen, where a manila envelope sat on the table. What's this about, Mum? She poured 2 cups of coffee before answering. Your mother left something for each of you when she died, insurance money. I never got anything. No, she said quietly, because Jermaine got to it first. My hands started shaking. What? She opened the envelope and pulled out documents. Your mother had a life insurance policy, $200,000, split equally between you and Jermaine. That's impossible. She could barely afford groceries. I helped her pay the premiums. She wanted to leave you both something, especially you, London, for the bakery you dreamed of. The room started spinning. What happened to it? Jermaine found the policy paperwork while helping clean out her house. He forged your signature on the forms, claimed you'd authorized him to collect your share. $100,000, I whispered. He stole $100,000 from me? There's more. She pulled out a letter, Mum's handwriting instantly recognizable. She wrote this the week before she died, read it. My hands trembled as I unfolded the paper. My dearest London, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm leaving you and Jermaine equal shares of my insurance money. Your half is for that bakery you've wanted since you were little. Don't let anyone, not even your brother, talk you out of your dreams. I know I've asked too much of you over the years, made you be the responsible one, the strong one. I'm sorry for that burden. Love, Mum. She died thinking I got the money, I said. All this time. Jermaine told everyone you'd taken your share and moved away. That's why you stopped getting invited to family events. People believed. They believed I abandoned the family after taking Mum's money. Sarah reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I knew something was wrong. Jermaine started buying expensive things, claiming he'd gotten an inheritance from your father's side. My phone buzzed, Kian calling. Hey, got a minute? Jermaine's lawyer reached out. He's offering a full confession about Vera in exchange for a lighter sentence. Tell him to confess about Mum's insurance money too. Silence. Then, what insurance money? I explained quickly while Sarah pulled out more documents. Bank statements showing the transfers, forged documents with my signature. This changes everything, Kian said. Insurance fraud, forgery. I'll add it to the federal charges. After I hung up, Sarah made fresh coffee. There's something else you should know, she said. Your mother called me the day before her heart attack. She'd discovered something about Jermaine, credit card applications in your name. She was going to confront him. And then she died. The stress probably triggered it. Her last words to me were about protecting you from him. My phone lit up with a text from Walker. Vera's family is trying to distance themselves. They're claiming they never knew about her scams. Then another message from an unknown number. This is Jermaine's lawyer. He's willing to return the insurance money in exchange for... I deleted it without reading further. You know what's funny? I said to Sarah. All these years I've been killing myself trying to help him, giving him money, paying his debts, and the whole time, The whole time he had your inheritance. Not just the money, he took my reputation with the family, my relationship with Mum's memory, my dreams. Sarah stood up and walked to a cabinet. Speaking of dreams, she pulled out a dusty folder. Your mother gave me these too, your original bakery plans from culinary school. I opened the folder. There they were. My sketches, business plans, recipe ideas, dreams I'd put aside to bail out Jermaine again and again. My phone buzzed with an email from my lawyer. Federal prosecutors want to meet. They're building a massive case. Insurance fraud, identity theft, international wire fraud. What are you going to do? Sarah asked. I looked at my old bakery plans, then at Mum's letter. Finally, at the evidence of Jermaine's betrayal spread across the table. I'm going to do what Mum wanted, I said. I'm going to stop letting anyone, especially Jermaine, talk me out of my dreams. And the prosecutors? I picked up my phone and typed a response. I'll tell them everything. Every lie, every theft, every betrayal, starting with Mum's insurance money. Because some betrayals go beyond money. Some cut straight to the heart of who we are, and who we've been forced to become. It was time to become someone else, someone stronger, someone Mum would be proud of. The courtroom fell silent as I finished my testimony. Jermaine wouldn't look at me. Vera, in her orange jumpsuit, glared daggers from the defendant's table. And the insurance money? The prosecutor asked. My brother stole $100,000 meant for my bakery, then convinced our family I was the thief. Objection, Vera's lawyer stood. Relevance? Overruled, the judge said. Continue. I detailed every fraud, every lie, every manipulation. When I finished, Jermaine was crying. Vera's glare had turned to panic. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. How does it feel to see justice served? Will you ever forgive your brother? What's next for you? Kian appeared, clearing a path. No comments today. In his car, my phone buzzed with notifications. The verdict was trending. Wedding scammers get federal time. Brother and wife face 15 years for fraud. Sister's testimony seals conviction. You okay? Kian asked. Better than okay. We drove to a small storefront downtown. The sign read, Coming soon, London's Sweet Redemption Bakery. Walker and Aunt Sarah were waiting inside, surrounded by construction dust and half-assembled equipment. The contractors say 2 more weeks, Walker said. The investors are thrilled with the publicity, by the way. Everyone loves a comeback story. Sarah hugged me. Your mother would be so proud. My phone rang. The prosecutor. They're offering a deal. Jermaine will return the insurance money plus interest if you write a letter supporting a lighter sentence. I watched workers installing my brand new industrial ovens, bought with legitimate investor money, not stolen funds. Tell him to keep it. I built this myself. You sure it's $100,000? I'm sure some debts can't be repaid with money. After I hung up, Walker showed me something on his phone. Vera's cousin had posted our story on LinkedIn. Proud to help expose financial fraud and support victims. Visit London's Sweet Redemption Bakery. Opening soon. Your origin story is marketing gold, he grinned. A young woman peered through the front window, then tentatively opened the door. Are you London? I saw your story online. I think my fiancé is doing the same thing to me. Can I talk to you? I recognized that look. The doubt, the fear, the desperate need for validation. Come in, I said. Let me make you some coffee. While the coffee brewed in my new commercial machine, she told me about mysterious credit cards, unexplained withdrawals, guilt trips about family loyalty. I feel crazy for suspecting him, she said. He says I'm paranoid. You're not crazy. I handed her Kian's card. Call this number, then call me when you're ready to stop being a victim. After she left, Sarah squeezed my shoulder. You're going to be doing a lot of that, aren't you? Someone has to. My phone buzzed. A text from Jermaine's prison account. I'm sorry for everything. Please forgive me. Delete. Another message from Vera. You think you've won? Just wait until we get out. Block. Walker raised an eyebrow at my smile. What's funny? They still think this was about winning. I gestured around the bakery. This was about choosing myself for once. A delivery truck pulled up outside, my custom display cases arriving. The driver needed a signature. London Mitchell? He asked. That's me, owner of Sweet Redemption Bakery. The words felt good. Right. True. My phone lit up with another message, this time from the young woman who'd just left. I checked our accounts. You were right. Thank you for helping me see the truth. I showed it to Sarah, who smiled. You're not just building a bakery, are you? No, I said, watching my dream literally take shape around me. I'm building a reminder that sometimes the sweetest revenge is simply refusing to be a victim anymore. The afternoon sun streamed through my newly installed windows, catching the gold lettering on the wall, Sweet Redemption Bakery, where every recipe tells a story. And mine? Mine was just beginning. Not as a sister who sacrificed everything, not as a victim of fraud, but as someone who finally understood that the best form of justice isn't punishment. It's proving that they didn't break you. They just showed you how strong you really are. Ready to test the ovens? Sarah asked, holding up my mother's old recipe box. I tied on a brand new apron with my bakery's logo. Ready to make something sweet out of something bitter. Because that's what redemption tastes like, and I was finally ready for my first bite.
Donna shared her home with her husband, Walter, who had become increasingly domineering despite being a stay-at-home spouse. While Donna worked to support them, Walter managed the household, but his controlling demeanor undermined her efforts. What was meant to be a stable arrangement soon felt like a futile obligation, with Donna contributing financially but feeling her input was undervalued. One afternoon, Walter smugly announced that he would invite his parents to live with them, suggesting that Donna could move in with her in-laws without bothering to consult her first. Stunned into silence by his audacity, especially since she was the one who owned the house, Donna felt a breaking point approaching. She had endured Walter's overbearing attitude for too long. He often issued commands as if entitled, like the time he ordered her to fetch him ice cream late at night while he lounged comfortably, oblivious to her exhaustion from work. When she suggested he could get it himself, he laughed dismissively, implying that defying him would have consequences. His behavior was not just irritating, it was utterly draining. Donna felt increasingly disrespected and devalued, questioning how sustainable it was to live with someone who believed his role as the husband gave him superiority. If things didn't change, she couldn't continue this way. Walter needed to understand the impact of his actions, and Donna decided it was time for him to face the consequences of his domineering behavior. In that moment, I realized that managing Walter's demands alongside my already stressful job was pushing my limits. I'm really tired. I'm sorry. I'm going to rest in my room, I told him. Walter didn't take my response well. He blocked my path, challenging me. What's with that attitude towards your husband? I could kick you out right now if I wanted to. Do you really think it's okay to upset your spouse like this? His anger baffled me. How could he act so authoritatively without contributing financially, yet be so easily disturbed by my exhaustion? It felt like dealing with a child throwing a tantrum. I'm sorry, but I'm exhausted. Please try to understand, I replied, forcing a smile and hoping to disengage. He sighed deeply, muttering, "You're such a disappointment as a wife." I didn't have the energy to argue, so I simply repeated, "I'm sorry," before retreating to my room. Each day, Walter's overbearing nature wore me down, but I lacked the energy to confront him. Then, one day, I caught a severe cold, which the doctor diagnosed as stress-induced. My thoughts immediately turned to Walter's relentless pressure. I was so ill that I couldn't move and took a day off work, lying in bed with a fever. When I told Walter about my condition, he snapped, "A cold? That's just an excuse. Go to work. You're useless." His harsh words only seemed to elevate my fever. He declared, "I won't be taking care of you. This is your mess. Deal with it." I was left alone in my room, moaning from the fever with no one to help, too weak to prepare anything for myself. I dreaded facing Walter again, fearing more verbal abuse. My temperature climbed to 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and the fever was so intense that I was drenched in sweat, unable even to change my soaked clothes. Lying there, I pondered how much easier it might be if I could just drift away. With those grim thoughts, I endured a painful night alone. Perhaps it was the fever talking, but deep down, I knew something had to change. Throughout the night, as the sun disappeared and the stars took over the sky, loneliness and doubt engulfed me. I longed for Walter's support, not to cure my fever, but just to bring me an ice pack or check on me. Sadly, that was just a fantasy. Instead, his words echoed in my mind, cutting deep and stirring new anxieties. I questioned why I was the only one suffering, what I had done wrong, and why things couldn't be smoother between us. Once those thoughts surfaced, the tears flowed freely, the pain became unbearable. After 5 days of rest, my fever finally subsided enough for me to return to work. My colleagues and bosses expressed their concern, asking if I was truly okay to be back. Even though I was still recuperating, I felt compelled to support our household financially and couldn't afford to take more time off. Their genuine concern touched me deeply, a stark contrast to Walter's indifference, and nearly brought me to tears again. At that moment, a voice inside me screamed that I could no longer tolerate Walter's behavior. I was pushing myself too hard, ignoring the signs that this lifestyle was unsustainable. Deep down, I knew I couldn't keep going like this without eventually collapsing under the strain. My feelings for Walter had significantly diminished, yet I lacked the energy to consider separation. Amid these turbulent emotions, I trudged through my days, working hard, returning home exhausted, and catering to Walter's unpredictable demands. This had become my new normal. One day, as I sought a moment of peace in my room, Walter called out, asking to discuss something serious. It had been a while since we had a genuine conversation. Typically, Walter made significant decisions on his own. With a heavy heart, I sat down, bracing myself for what was to come. To my shock, he announced with unexpected enthusiasm, "I'm going to let my parents move in with us, and you need to leave since you can't even cook." The first word that escaped my lips was, "What?" He continued, "You have to go because you'll be living with my in-laws." I was stunned, struggling to grasp the selfishness of his demands. The situation had escalated to a breaking point, and I realized that something had to change. As Walter continued, he revealed his plans to change the ownership of our house, intending to transfer it to his name and his parents. He bluntly stated his intention to divorce me, insisting his decision was final and that my opinions didn't matter. I felt utterly disregarded, my feelings trampled beneath choices made without my consent. Walter, inflated by his man-of-the-house ego, seemed solely focused on his desires. My heart sank as I confronted the reality of our life together. Ignoring my growing detachment, Walter sneered, "You love me so much, don't you? I know this is shocking coming from a husband you cherish, but I'm sorry, I just want to take care of my family. Please understand." His words, intended to sound sympathetic, felt more like a reprimand. I wanted to scream that he was mistaken. Any affection I once held for him had evaporated, leaving only disbelief at his selfishness and regret for not leaving sooner. Why hadn't I walked away earlier? If I had, perhaps he wouldn't have had the chance to exploit and demean me so thoroughly. I even found myself resenting my past self for being too lenient. Walter misread my visible distress as lingering love, thinking I couldn't bear the thought of divorce. But he was wrong. My feelings for him had long since faded into nothing more than disdain for a man who wrongly believed I still cared. Determined to reclaim my life, I replied firmly, "Fine then, I'll leave." Walter gasped, clearly caught off guard by my willingness to accept the divorce and move on. He needed to understand that the old me, the one who always bailed him out, was gone for good. From this moment on, whatever happened to him, he would face it alone because our relationship was over. Seeing my resolve, Walter stood frozen in shock. I seized the moment and headed to my room to pack my essentials. I knew I couldn't take larger items today and would need to arrange for movers later. As I began packing, Walter hurried over, perhaps finally grasping the seriousness of the situation. His voice was laced with uncertainty as he approached me. "Are you sure about this? If we divorce, we'll be strangers." I offered a soft smile and replied, "I've already fallen out of love with you. Letting go feels like a weight lifted off my shoulders." Walter stood there, looking bewildered and lost. I nodded, thanked him for the years we shared, and walked out of the house. His worried expression lingered in my mind as I made my way back to my parents' home. When I explained everything to them, they initially reacted with anger at Walter's behavior but soon calmed down. Reassured by my resolve and the plan I had in place, I began to recover at my parents' house, taking the first steps toward initiating the divorce proceedings. After sending the divorce papers, Walter messaged me, "Are you sure about this? I don't know if it's really a good thing, but I don't have any feelings for you anymore. If we've gone this far, there's no turning back." His message ended with a request to expedite the divorce. "I feel so much better now that you're gone, so please fill out the divorce papers quickly." I replied but received no response. A few days later, I received the completed divorce papers from Walter, with his sections already filled out. I promptly finished my part and submitted it to the county office. Just like that, Walter and I were officially divorced. During the proceedings, we divided our assets. Walter insisted on keeping the house, so I transferred ownership to him and chose to move on. The house had never truly felt like home. it was more of a burden. Instead, I sought alimony from Walter, which his parents initially covered since he wasn't working. However, he was now job hunting, likely planning to repay them once he secured employment. But, as often happens, reality didn't align with plans. A month after the divorce was finalized, I had moved out of my parents' home and into a new place, relishing a more peaceful life. Then I received a call from Walter. Honestly, it was annoying. I could guess why he was calling, but ignoring him might lead to complications. Knowing I'd have to address it sooner or later for the sake of my future, I answered with a firm, "Hello, what do you want?" Fed up, I wanted him to get straight to the point. Reluctantly, I listened as he pleaded, "Please help me." His desperate tone made me chuckle. Walter was clearly in a tough spot, and while part of me felt distant, another part was mildly amused by the irony of his desperation. I hadn't expected things to deteriorate so quickly. "What's going on? You need to tell me everything," I replied, half amused by the situation. I suspected why Walter might be struggling, but I wanted him to lay it all out himself. With a hesitant voice and stumbling over his words, Walter began to explain. He had taken over the house after our divorce and managed it fine for a month. However, he now faced a rent payment he couldn't meet due to his unemployment. Desperate, he had asked my former in-laws, who were on a pension, for help, but the rent was far steeper than anyone anticipated, about $2,500, a sum they couldn't afford on their fixed income. My former in-laws were furious, accusing him of misleading them. "This isn't what we agreed to," they insisted, placing the blame squarely on Walter. Feeling lost and nearly in tears, Walter called me. "I didn't realize the rent would be so high. The place is a mess. Now what are you going to do about it?" Frustrated and overwhelmed, he tried to pin the blame on me. I hadn't discussed the specifics of the rent before our separation, but it was his folly to take on the house without understanding the financial commitments involved. He had pushed me away, treating me like an outsider, and now he was facing the consequences of his choices. Despite this, he seemed unable to accept responsibility and was reaching out to me for help. I couldn't help but sigh at his audacity. Ignoring the strain in his voice, Walter continued urgently, "Please, I need your help. We can't keep going like this. I need you." His desperation was palpable. The rent due date had likely already passed, and they might be behind on payments. The landlord of that house had a reputation for being temperamental and strict about rent deadlines. I remembered the warnings I had received while still living there: never be late with the rent. If they missed a payment, they would face serious repercussions. Walter, having met the landlord a few times, knew exactly how intimidating they could be. His call felt like a last-ditch effort fueled by sheer desperation. When Walter called, pleading for help, his tone was as self-centered as ever. "Please, just cover the rent for 1 month. I don't have anyone else to turn to. You still care about me, right? If someone you care about is in trouble, you should help them out." I wanted to tell him outright that my feelings for him had long since faded, but instead, I bit back my frustration and replied coldly, "I'm sorry, but I have no obligation to help you. You were the one who cut me off, and now you expect me to assist you when it's convenient for you? That's not fair." He attempted to defend himself. "Please don't be so cold. I can't handle this alone. Whether you still love me or not doesn't matter now. We were married once, right? Can't you help me just this once?" "No, you left me, and even before that, my feelings for you had already cooled. It's been a long time since I stopped loving you," I stated firmly. Hearing his dejected response, "I can't believe it," hit me harder than I expected. For so long, I had endured his selfishness, his indifference, and the way he took me for granted. Even when I was sick, I had stayed by his side, hoping to salvage our marriage, working tirelessly for the life we had built, only to find this was the outcome. Why hadn't I left sooner when my love faded? Why hadn't I distanced myself earlier? Regrets flooded in, mingling with the anger I felt toward him. Walter had never truly faced me, never showed real concern, and never embraced the idea of navigating life as a team. All this time, he had treated me like a maid or a money-making machine, oblivious to my suffering. And now, despite all of this being a result of his choices, he came to me, pleading for help as if he were the victim. His self-centeredness was infuriating. "Please help me, I'm begging you. What about getting married again? Let's start over properly this time. I promise I'll never push you away again," Walter proposed desperately. I felt a mix of incredulity and annoyance. How could he think a simple plea for help could erase the years of neglect and misunderstanding? His desperation was evident, but so was my decision to not fall back into the same toxic pattern. I had moved on, and it was time for him to do the same. I couldn't help but chuckle bitterly at his suggestion. "Are you kidding me? All of this is the result of your actions. I've been trying to find peace for a long time. I kept hoping you would face reality, and now you want me to start over with you, pretending none of it ever happened? Do you expect me to return to those miserable days? That's never going to happen." I was resolute. I would not return to that life. Emotions overwhelmed me. and tears began to flow. Though I couldn't tell if they were from anger or sadness, Walter remained silent on the other end, unable to respond to my words, unable to continue the conversation. I simply said goodbye and hung up. He didn't call back, and to ensure I wouldn't hear his voice again, I blocked his number. Later, I learned from mutual friends that Walter and his family had been evicted from their home. He had tried to persuade my former in-laws to cover his rent, but they were furious and refused, further upsetting the landlord. With no options left, they were forced to leave. Walter had struggled to find a full-time job and was now working part-time to make ends meet. Meanwhile, my former in-laws had to sell their house and were now crammed into a rundown apartment, all three of them living together. In contrast, I had been deeply focused on my work, and my boss even discussed a potential promotion with me. I might become the first female manager in our company, and I received admiration from both colleagues and juniors. Occasionally, friends inquired if I was considering marriage again. To be honest, my past experiences left me with a rather negative view of marriage. The idea of dating or marrying again didn't appeal to me at the moment, but life is long, and there's no rush. Many people in this generation live fulfilling lives without marriage. What matters most to me is living without regrets and staying true to myself. With that in mind, I want to continue navigating life at my own pace, embracing whatever comes my way with strength and independence. Hello, I'm Patricia, a 32-year-old woman whose childhood was marked by the profound loss of my mother. This tragedy deepened the bond once shared with my father, who worked tirelessly to meet all my needs. The absence of my mother made me wary of my emotions, leading me to believe I might remain single forever. That was until I met Peter, a kind and determined man, now 34, introduced to me by a friend who worried about my prolonged solitude. After a year of tender courtship, Peter proposed. Now, as we prepare for our wedding, I find myself reflecting on a troubling incident that occurred at our wedding reception. In a shocking display, my in-laws, clearly under the influence and oblivious to the crowd's whispers, confronted me publicly. They demanded I prove my worthiness to the family by contributing $55,000 monthly, half my salary, claiming it was too late for objections since I was already marrying into their family. I was taken aback by their audacity to make such demands during what was meant to be a joyous celebration. As I stood there, my face pale with disbelief, my father stepped in, taking the microphone from them. He firmly reprimanded my in-laws, reminding them of the embarrassment they were inflicting on themselves. This incident not only shocked me but also reinforced the cautious approach I've always had toward relationships. Despite the love and support from both my father and Peter, navigating these family dynamics has been an entirely new challenge. From the very beginning of our relationship, Peter's kindness and attentiveness filled me with genuine happiness. He became such an integral part of my life that I couldn't help but envision a future together. When he proposed, it felt like a natural progression for both of us. He always knew the right words to calm my anxieties. Don't worry if you're uncertain about something. I'll be here for you until you feel more secure. I love you, Patricia. You can always count on me, he would say, his promises and reassuring presence wrapped around me like a warm blanket, deepening my affection for him. When I shared the news of our engagement with my father, his joy was overwhelming. Tears of happiness filled his eyes. Wow, Patricia, you're finally getting married. I'm so thrilled for you, he exclaimed. I couldn't help but tease him for being so emotional, a side of him I rarely witnessed. I used to worry you might never settle down, he confessed. Hearing his concerns was a surprise, but it underscored the deep love he had for me. His heartfelt congratulations meant the world, especially knowing the sacrifices he made while raising me alone. As Peter and I immersed ourselves in wedding planning, our lives became a flurry of activity. Work consumed our weekdays, while weekends were dedicated to organizing our special day. Free time turned into a rare commodity. Finally, we found a moment to visit Peter's parents for the first time since our engagement, eager despite our hectic schedules. As we arrived at his parents' house, a wave of nerves hit me. Peter noticed my anxiety and offered a reassuring smile. Don't worry, my parents are really nice, he said, which calmed me a bit. When I rang the doorbell, it was Peter's mother who answered. Mom, I'm home, he called out cheerfully. Welcome home, Peter. It's wonderful to see you, she replied warmly. I followed with a polite introduction. Nice to meet you. I'm Patricia, Peter's fiancée. However, her initial warmth towards Peter seemed to dissipate when she turned to me. The smile she offered was polite but lacked the genuine warmth she had shown her son, and her gaze held a hint of scrutiny. This subtle shift left me feeling uneasy. As we stepped into the living room, her reserved demeanor continued. With a tone more interrogative than conversational, she began. Patricia, I'm curious about what you can offer. Peter is our treasure, our only child. If you're going to marry him, you need to be worthy of him. Her bluntness took me by surprise. I hadn't anticipated such a frosty reception from my future mother-in-law and struggled to find the right words to respond. "Remember, you'll be joining our family. Are you ready for that?" she pressed. While marrying Peter indeed meant becoming part of his family, her high expectations felt unreasonable. Peter's family wasn't a prominent or influential dynasty, and I wouldn't even be living with them. The weight of her questions was uncomfortable, leaving me feeling pressured. As I struggled to find the right words, Peter's mother grew impatient with my silence, her voice rising in frustration. "When I ask you a question, answer me right away. It's rude to keep me waiting," she pressed on, demanding. "Are you ready for this?" Overwhelmed, I managed to respond. "I hope Peter and I will support each other in our marriage." Her reply was curt and dismissive. "That's naive. Your role as a wife is to support Peter. You clearly don't understand the fundamentals." Sitting nearby, Peter's father intervened. "Honey, please calm down." He turned to me, apologetic. "I'm sorry, Patricia. I hope my wife's words didn't upset you too much." "It's okay," I replied, trying to maintain my composure. I recognized that Peter's mother was protective of her son and may have spoken out of haste. Just then, Peter's brother entered the room, his gentle tone momentarily easing my anxiety until he added, "What my wife said has some merit. What concerns me is your background, coming from a single-parent family." Confused and a bit hurt, I asked, "What do you mean?" He elaborated. "Well, being raised by just one parent doesn't exactly create the best image. We can't be thrilled about someone from such a background becoming our son's wife, can we?" At that moment, I could no longer hold back. "Wait a minute, what's wrong with being raised by a single parent? My father worked incredibly hard to raise me alone. I'm proud of my upbringing and my father. Growing up with one parent doesn't diminish my worth." A tense silence filled the room as I stood my ground, feeling the weight of their judgments yet resolute in my values. It was clear that Peter's parents held an old-fashioned perspective, questioning my ability to be a good wife based on my upbringing. They voiced doubts about whether I had learned essential skills like managing a household. I replied firmly, "I helped my father with chores all the time. I can cook well, so please don't make assumptions about me." Despite my clear explanation, they brushed off my words and proceeded to lay down conditions for our marriage. "We'll allow you to marry Peter, but in return, you must promise to prioritize us as his parents. Can you promise that?" Their demand left me stunned. It felt more like a transaction than a blessing. Later that evening, feeling sidelined by their domineering attitude, I decided to share my concerns with Peter. "Hey, Peter, do your parents always talk to people like that?" I asked, seeking some understanding. Peter seemed unfazed. "What's wrong with how they talk?" I was surprised that he didn't see the issue. "I mean the way they spoke to me and what they said," I clarified. Peter waved it off. "Oh really? They were just checking if you're ready for marriage. I know they're concerned, but I felt like their comments were a bit excessive." I pressed on. "Peter, their casual tone really surprised me." "Really? What did they say that was wrong?" "They've given us their blessing, so let's not dwell on it." Although I nodded in agreement, I couldn't shake the feeling that Peter was siding more with his parents than with me. It troubled me deeply. Sensing my discomfort, Peter pulled me into a hug, trying to reassure me. "Patricia, you don't have to worry. My parents are just a bit upset because their only son is getting married," he explained. While Peter's words were meant to comfort me, they didn't fully ease my feelings of being misunderstood and somewhat isolated in this new family dynamic. I wondered how we would navigate our future together with such differing expectations from his parents. Peter tried to lighten the mood by suggesting that his parents only wanted what was best for us. "They just want us to have a strong marriage like theirs, which is why they might come off as harsh," he said. I attempted to see things from his perspective, acknowledging that they might hold high expectations for us. Nevertheless, I couldn't shake the discomfort stemming from their criticisms of my upbringing. I firmly believe that our marriage should revolve around us and our mutual respect, not just about gaining approval from Peter's parents. As these thoughts swirled in my mind, our wedding day finally arrived. Walking down the aisle with my father, who had raised me alone, was an incredibly emotional moment. When Peter and I exchanged vows and rings, applause surrounded us, filling me with overwhelming joy and a profound sense of the commitment we were making. The reception buzzed with excitement, and the well wishes from friends and colleagues made it a day to remember. Despite my initial apprehensions about Peter's parents, the joy of the occasion reassured me that we had made the right decision to go ahead with our plans. After the ceremony, we eagerly anticipated the moment we would officially register our marriage. The day was filled with cherished memories, but as we prepared to greet our guests, I noticed Peter's parents were visibly intoxicated, their erratic behavior making me uneasy. An uncomfortable moment unfolded during the reception when Peter's mother, a bit too forcefully, pulled me aside. In a commanding tone, she said, "Patricia, listen carefully. After this wedding, You are going to dedicate yourself entirely to us. Be ready because we will put you to the test." Some guests chuckled, assuming it was a joke. Moments later, Peter's father took the microphone, glanced at me, and remarked, "Patricia, don't you feel ashamed wearing a dress like that? It really doesn't suit you." His tone was sharp, and Peter's mother added, "Dear, you should tell her the truth." The atmosphere shifted. Whispers filled the room, some in disbelief, others expressing discomfort. I turned to Peter, hoping for his support and expecting him to address his parents' rude comments. To my dismay, he remained silent, later saying he couldn't intervene and didn't believe his parents were in the wrong. This response was disheartening, revealing the potential challenges we might face as a couple, especially concerning his parents' influence and our differing approaches to family conflicts. As the day progressed, I knew we would need to discuss these issues further to build a strong, united future. Amid the wedding hall's bustling atmosphere, a harsh reality set in. Peter would not shield me from his parents' harshness in the future. The situation escalated quickly when my in-laws, under the influence, continued to berate me with unreasonable demands. "Well, you're married now, but to be part of this family, you need to prove you have enough money," they announced, adding, "After you register your marriage, you should give us a few thousand a month from your bonus." Their audacious demands left me stunned. I never expected such behavior at our wedding reception. My face drained of color as I stood there, and my father stepped in, taking the microphone with a firm yet respectful tone. "Enough of this, don't you realize how inappropriate this is?" he challenged. Peter's parents shot back defiantly. "Why are you interrupting us while we're speaking?" they sneered. I always knew this woman's father was no good. Single parents are never any good. Anger bubbled within me, but my father remained composed, responding, "You're even worse than I thought. Refusing to meet me simply because I'm a single father is shameful." I never expected such bigotry from people associated with a respected figure. I would expect more decency from employees of President Donald. The mention of President Donald seemed to rattle my father-in-law. "How do you know President Donald?" he asked, his tone shifting to one of concern. "He's a business partner of my company and, more importantly, an old friend," my father clarified. "And speaking of single parents, President Donald himself was raised by a single mother. So your comments have inadvertently insulted the president of the company you work for." As realization dawned on their faces, the gravity of their blunder became evident. My father-in-law's demeanor shifted from assertive to pleading as he dropped to his knees. "I apologize, sir. Please don't mention this to the president," he begged, his earlier bravado evaporating in the face of potential consequences. This sudden shift highlighted not only the thoughtlessness of their earlier remarks but also the respect my father commanded. As the night unfolded, I contemplated the complex dynamics of our newly extended family and the role I would navigate within it. Amid the unfolding drama, my father-in-law looked utterly defeated, and the guests couldn't help but react. Some laughed, others captured the moment on their phones, standing by his principles. My dad replied firmly, "Apologies can't undo what's been said." He then approached me quietly, asking if I wanted to leave with him. I nodded, taking the microphone from Peter's hand. "Thank you all for the entertainment, but there will be no wedding," I announced decisively, addressing Peter, his parents, and the guests at the reception. "I will ensure that all gifts and contributions for this occasion are returned." With those final words, I exited the hall alongside my father. As we left the hall, I caught a glimpse of Peter and his parents, their faces etched with shock and dismay. Relatives quickly gathered around them, their expressions filled with concern. The fallout from that night was swift. As I returned the gifts and recounted the situation, many guests expressed their sympathy, commending my father and me for standing up against such unacceptable behavior. They appreciated our integrity in refusing to be manipulated by offensive demands. However, the incident had a broader impact. It reverberated through Peter's professional life as well. Colleagues who attended the wedding began to view him differently, tarnishing his reputation due to his failure to defend me against his parents' unreasonable actions. The embarrassment became so overwhelming that Peter felt he had no choice but to resign from his position. Meanwhile, the president of the company where my father-in-law worked caught wind of the debacle. The consequences were severe. Peter's father was demoted and reassigned to a less prestigious role in a remote office. Additionally, Peter's family faced social repercussions, becoming somewhat ostracized by relatives due to the scandal. It was an unfortunate series of events, but sometimes, the consequences of one's actions are inescapable. In the aftermath, I focused on rebuilding and strengthening my relationship with my dad. We've been spending more quality time together, finding comfort and support in each other's company. After navigating such turbulent waters, this upheaval in my personal life has deepened my appreciation for everything he has done for me. One day, he invited me for a heart-to-heart conversation that took an unexpected turn. "Patricia, have you ever thought about taking over the business?" he asked, his face filled with hope. Caught off guard, I hesitated. Are you suggesting I trailed off, unsure of where he was leading. He smiled slightly. Why don't you work towards becoming the president of my company? It was a significant proposal, and his tone made it clear he believed I was ready for the challenge. I'll do my best, I promised, excitement and nerves swirling within me. After reflecting on my recent experiences, I decided to focus on advancing my career at my dad's company, putting romantic pursuits on hold for the time being. I wanted to prove to both myself and my father that I could excel and perhaps even become a great leader like him. Currently, I am fully dedicated to learning all aspects of the business. The work is demanding yet immensely rewarding, and I'm eager to embrace every opportunity that comes my way. The ordeal at the wedding highlighted just how unreasonable Peter's parents had been, turning what should have been a beautiful celebration into a spectacle. Thankfully, since the marriage was never legally finalized, I avoided a potentially disastrous entanglement. Now free from marital commitments and in-law complications, I can concentrate entirely on my professional ambitions. It's liberating to have found clarity after such a tumultuous period. I'm optimistic about the future and excited about the prospect of leading the company one day. Thank you for taking the time to follow my story to its conclusion. If you found something meaningful in it, please consider subscribing. I look forward to sharing more updates and insights with you in the future. When I married Jerry, I was fortunate to inherit some real estate from my grandparents. They advised me to keep it confidential, even from Jerry, as a means of ensuring long-term security. While I trusted their wisdom, I didn't anticipate needing it until Jerry's behavior started crossing boundaries. For example, he often tried to re-gift items I'd bought from my family to his, using them to impress his parents. When I questioned him about it, his defensive reactions left me uneasy. Then, a recent incident left me deeply unsettled. I discovered $22,000 had been withdrawn from a joint account meant for household expenses, an account we both contributed to. I couldn't recall making any large withdrawals, and soon it became clear Jerry had taken the money. When I confronted him, he admitted he'd lent it to his mother, Kayla. Without informing me, he shrugged it off as a minor detail, claiming she needed help. The revelation struck me hard. Not only was this a substantial sum, but Jerry's disregard for transparency over such decisions made me question our relationship. I understood helping family in tough times, but taking shared funds without consulting me felt like a breach of trust. He brushed off my concerns, irritated, and said he'd let me know next time. Then he quickly excused himself, leaving me feeling that our early marriage's mutual respect had eroded. A few days later, I delivered a package to my in-laws' home that had been sent to our address by mistake. My mother-in-law, Amy, invited me in for tea, and though I planned to leave quickly, I accepted. While there, I noticed expensive cosmetics, designer clothing, and various luxurious health items around the house. Amy mentioned they were all gifts from Jerry, and my heart sank. This is where our $22,000 had gone. The idea that need had justified such lavish spending angered me, raising deeper concerns about our marriage's foundation. When I tried to process this, my mother-in-law turned defensive. Jerry is such a wonderful, generous son, always taking care of me, she said, almost confrontationally. But are you treating him well? I hear you're upset over some money he used for my sake. I realized then that Jerry had portrayed himself as a victim to his family, making me seem unreasonable for questioning his decision. It wasn't just about the money anymore, it was about respect, understanding, and honesty, all of which seemed lacking. I left their house with a heavy heart, feeling more certain than ever that our marriage might be beyond repair. In considering a future without Jerry, I thought about moving back to my parents' house, a two-story home built over 30 years ago. It once housed our family of 5 comfortably, but with my parents now aging, its layout and stairs had become impractical. Though there were a few adjustments like handrails, a single-story home would be much safer for them. With the passive income I'd set aside, I could rebuild their home to be more accessible and suitable for them in their later years. This vision of stability and security offered a glimpse of peace amidst the turmoil. Filled with a mix of resolve and relief, I called my parents to share my plans for a divorce and the idea of rebuilding their home. Surprisingly, they weren't shocked. Their calm acceptance confirmed what I'd been feeling. They, too, understood the need for a new chapter. When I mentioned the house project, their joy was immediate, and over the phone, I could sense their genuine gratitude. "We're so grateful you want to rebuild it for us. Thank you," they said, adding that even if they couldn't stay there forever, it would become my home someday since I was funding it. Encouraged, I replied, "I'll take it step by step, one day at a time. Just don't push yourself too hard," they reminded me, their words lifting my spirits. As I began organizing the house rebuild, I awaited a response from the construction company, but before things could move forward, Jerry confronted me angrily. How dare you use our savings to build a house without telling me, he shouted, slamming his fist onto the table as we sat facing each other in the living room. I took a steadying breath. My parents will live in the new house, I replied calmly. That's impossible because it was built for my parents to live in, he snapped, insisting that since he believed our shared finances were involved, his parents had just as much claim to it. Are you planning to cram 5 people into that one-story house? He demanded, pounding the table louder. Just give me the house, then. Realizing he might press harder if he knew about my passive income, I decided it was finally time to share the truth. To be honest, I have a separate source of income, I told him. My grandparents gifted me real estate that's given me passive earnings, and I've been using those funds for the house rebuild. I haven't touched our joint account for it. Breaking my grandparents' promise to keep it a secret weighed on me, but watching Jerry's reaction shift to even greater rage made their advice clearer. His face flushed, and his anger mounted. What a lousy wife you are, hiding money, using mine while protecting your own. His words stung, but they also clarified the deeper issues at play, the erosion of trust, respect, and mutual support. As Jerry continued, his tone grew even more entitled. I'll take the house as alimony. Anything you've built during our marriage is half mine. I am the head of this family, and if you keep disobeying, I'll divorce you myself. The dismay I felt was overwhelming. How had I spent so many years with someone who could so easily disregard my feelings, my independence, and my contributions? Initially, I had planned to keep the passive income as a safety net for both of us, support for unforeseen times. Like if Jerry's earnings fell short or if I became unable to work, I'd hoped to share it with him when the time was right, a small assurance for our future, but now, that thought felt impossible. I no longer wanted him to benefit from it. Needing space, I left the house and spent the night at a business hotel to clear my head and consider my next steps. When I returned the next morning, Jerry was waiting, wearing a sly, unsettling smile. As I walked in, he presented a sheet of paper with a smirk, divorce papers, already filled out. You're lying about that passive income, aren't you? He accused, voice dripping with suspicion. Just an excuse for taking money from our account. His accusations were baseless, yet he wouldn't relent. Despite my honest explanation, Jerry clung to his own narrative. This distrust, his lack of respect, finally made it clear that this marriage could never give me the support I needed. I steeled myself for the next steps. Jerry shoved the papers into my hand with a smirk. And don't forget, you'll let me know when my parents can move into that house, okay? He patted me on the shoulder, humming as he walked out the door, saying he was off for a drink. In that moment, I saw him clearly for the first time. Throughout our marriage, he had masked his contempt, his utter disregard for my feelings and perspective. That truth stung but also freed me. Without hesitation, I packed my things, filled out the divorce papers, and left. I moved in with my parents temporarily, explaining the entire situation. They agreed I could stay with them until the new house was completed. The next day, my phone was flooded with missed calls from Jerry, and then he called again. I answered, determined to make this our final conversation. Hello? All your stuff is gone. Why? He asked, sounding puzzled, as if he hadn't expected me to follow through. Why the panic? He'd pushed for the divorce. This is normal. We're divorcing, Jerry. I won't be coming back. Feel free to do whatever you want with the space, I replied, calmly asserting my decision. A pause followed, and I imagined he'd just realized that I had an income beyond his reach. Then, his voice shifted to an oddly sweet tone I'd never heard before. Hey, can you let my parents live in the new house? I don't care if I have to stay with yours, please. I was stunned. I told you it's a small one-story house, and it's a gift for my parents, I said, unable to believe his audacity. He was trying to claim a house he hadn't paid for as his own to give away. His disregard for the truth was astounding. You're just careless with money, he continued dismissively. I had to worry about giving you an allowance and saving for both of us. His words confirmed my decision, showing how skewed his understanding of finances, and our relationship, truly was. I reminded him of the sacrifices I'd made to manage our expenses and his tendency to ignore that effort. He fell silent. It was clear he was trying to take credit for everything, even as he planned to give away the home I'd built for my parents to impress his own. It was both shallow and, ultimately, deceptive. The clarity was sharp. Moving forward without him wasn't just a choice, it was essential. In the end, you're just trying to take advantage of my goodwill and claim what's mine. There's no justification for you to trample over my feelings and intentions like this, I said, standing firm. I'm not giving you the house I built with all my heart for my parents just so you can show off. Jerry's voice grew louder, tinged with desperation. But husbands and wives are supposed to help each other. I'll even tell them you built it, please. We're not a married couple anymore, remember? We're strangers now. I replied, reinforcing the distance his actions had created. On the same day he had handed me the divorce papers. I filed them without hesitation. He had been the one pushing for it, and yet, faced with the reality of our separation, he was incredulous. But why? I didn't think you'd actually leave. Let's start over, let's be a good couple this time, he pleaded, as if unaware of the harm he'd done. How could he say that now? This was the same man who had squandered our savings, belittled me, and threatened me with divorce. There was no going back. No, thank you, I said, adding cheerfully, please give my regards to your parents. With that, I ended the call. The next day, my phone was flooded with messages from Jerry, still insisting we get back together. His persistence was as baffling as it was unwelcome, only confirming my decision to move forward alone. He claimed he loved me, but it was obvious his real interest lay in my property and finances. To sever ties fully, I blocked all his contact information, along with his parents. Meanwhile, the new house was finally completed, and my parents and I moved in. Living in the home I had built, surrounded by support, felt like a fresh start. Later, a mutual friend who knew both Jerry and me reached out. I shared the news of our divorce, and she offered her sympathy, also filling me in on what had happened to Jerry. Apparently, he had abruptly resigned from his job, boasting that he no longer needed to work since he owned real estate. His bosses, unable to reach him for days, were left in the lurch. When he finally tried to retract his resignation, they confronted him, demanding an explanation. Unable to admit he had been banking on my income, he fabricated stories, but the truth about our divorce eventually surfaced, and his attempts to manipulate his job situation backfired. His former employer, seeing through his lies, refused to take him back. Now, Jerry, who had once scoffed at my passive income, was in a precarious position. He moved in with his parents, who were clearly frustrated with him. Jobless and marked by the way he'd left his last job, he was left to face the consequences of his own choices. As for me, life has taken a brighter turn. I'm now living comfortably with my parents in the home I built for us, working in a job I enjoy, and feeling fulfilled. The passive income one once saved for our future together is now being used to support those who stood by me. This chapter has brought a sense of peace and renewal, affirming that moving on was the best decision I could have made for my well-being. At the age of 12, my life underwent a profound transformation when my family moved from Kenya to Canada. This change introduced me to a vibrant world brimming with new opportunities, rich cultures, and friendly faces. Thanks to my father's success in business, we enjoyed a comfortable lifestyle that helped ease our transition into this unfamiliar environment. It was during high school that I met Russell, who would eventually become my husband. Our relationship weathered its share of challenges, but by the time I turned 22, we felt ready to commit and tie the knot. I was filled with joy, dreaming of a future filled with love and happiness. However, one major hurdle loomed before us: Russell's mother, Doris. She was openly opposed to our marriage, and I couldn't shake the feeling that her objections stemmed, at least in part, from my Kenyan heritage. Doris often made subtle, uncomfortable comments that left me feeling unwelcome. In contrast to his mother's attitude, Russell remained steadfast in his love for me. He valued our relationship for what it was, not for where I came from. Even in the face of his mother's disapproval, he stood by me, reaffirming his commitment to our union. On our wedding day, the joy of marrying Russell was overshadowed by the weight of Doris's discontent. Nevertheless, I chose to focus on the love we shared, pushing aside the negativity. After the wedding, Doris's disdain became increasingly evident. Her disparaging remarks about my culture and heritage were hurtful, and though I longed for a harmonious relationship with her, it felt increasingly out of reach. Russell tried to bridge the divide, caught between his love for both his mother and me. He promised to address the issues with Doris, but the tension lingered. Her constant jabs and intrusive questions about my background wore on my mental and emotional well-being. Despite these challenges, Russell and I were dedicated to building a life together. We settled into our new home, focusing on our careers and future plans. However, Doris's persistent disapproval continued to cast a shadow over our happiness, and eventually, her comments became intolerable. I reached a breaking point. While I had always tried to remain calm and kind, Doris's relentless negativity finally pushed me too far. In a moment of frustration, I raised my voice, a reaction I had never considered before. It was time to make it clear that I was exhausted by her constant barbs and her unwelcoming attitude. Doris, I've truly had enough of your incessant comments. They're wearing me down. Oh, I'm just expressing my opinions. There's no need for you to be so defensive. Expressing opinions? It feels more like you're targeting me because of my background. I deserve respect, just like anyone else. I don't mean to offend, but you seem overly sensitive about everything. This isn't about sensitivity, it's about respect. I am your daughter-in-law. and I deserve to be treated with kindness and understanding. Perhaps if you tried to fit in a bit more, I wouldn't need to make these remarks. Fit in? I've been part of this community for years. This is my home, too, and I shouldn't have to change who I am to satisfy you. Just so you know, I never sought your permission to marry your son, nor did I wish for it. I'm aware you had different plans for him. That's unfair. We love each other, and that should matter to you. If only you were from a more traditional background, perhaps I'd be more accepting. I don't need your acceptance. I'm proud of my heritage, and I won't let you belittle me for it. Your prejudice is your issue to resolve. Maybe things would be simpler if you had married someone from your own culture. That's not the point. We are married, and you need to accept that. Your ongoing disapproval is hurting us, and I won't let you tarnish our happiness. I never expected you to speak to me like this. Why are you being so aggressive? Perhaps you never anticipated that I would stand up for myself. I'm done trying to please you. If that's how you feel, maybe it's best if we keep our distance. That suits me fine. I deserve to be around people who respect and appreciate me for who I am. You're being unreasonable. No, I'm simply tired of being mistreated. I am part of your family now, whether you like it or not, and it's time for you to treat me accordingly. If you can't manage that, then maybe some distance is for the best. Suit yourself, she replied coldly. I will, thank you. I hope you take some time to reflect on how your actions are affecting your relationship with your son, I said firmly. I decided it was time to leave. Maybe when you're ready to treat me with the respect I deserve, we can have another conversation. Until then, take care. With that, I walked away, feeling a tumultuous mix of anger and sadness. Confronting Doris had been difficult, but standing up for myself was essential. I realized that my relationship with her might be forever altered, but I felt confident in my choice. I deserved respect, and I wouldn't tolerate any more subtle jabs or hurtful comments. My priority had to be my marriage and building a joyful life with Russell, regardless of Doris's disapproval. When I recounted the details of our confrontation with Doris to Russell, I was taken aback by his unwavering support. He boldly told his mother that she needed to treat me with respect. However, the situation escalated dramatically when Doris threatened to disown him as well. This shocking ultimatum deeply pained both of us, especially Russell. It was heartbreaking to witness his mother's willingness to sever ties with her son simply for defending his wife. Yet, amidst this turmoil, we found clarity. We didn't need toxic people in our lives, even if they were family. We deserved love and respect, and if someone couldn't provide that, they didn't deserve a place in our lives. Watching Doris act this way was painful, but it was a turning point for Russell. He began to realize that his mother's negativity and disapproval were barriers to his true happiness. It was time for him to move beyond the toxicity and build a life with me founded on love and mutual understanding. Months passed since Doris cut ties with us, and although Russell was deeply affected by his mother's decision, he still missed her despite everything she had said and done. In an effort to support him in finding closure and perhaps opening the door to reconciliation, I planned a dinner date at his favorite restaurant, hoping it would provide him comfort and possibly signal a new beginning. When we arrived and I gave my name, the maitre d' looked puzzled and informed me that I was on the blacklist. This revelation took me by surprise. Russell and I had always been regular patrons there. Confused and determined to clear up the misunderstanding, I asked to speak with the manager. To our astonishment, the manager emerged, revealing herself to be none other than Doris. In the months we hadn't seen her, she had been busy expanding her portfolio, now managing this very restaurant, Applebee's, our favorite spot. It felt too calculated to be mere coincidence. Seeing her there, I was hit with a wave of shock and disbelief at her pettiness. Well, what do we have here? I never thought I'd see the day when you two would show up at my restaurant, Doris said, making it clear that we were not welcome. Russell, unable to contain his frustration, began to raise his voice, drawing the attention of the other diners and creating a scene in the restaurant. I found myself caught in a tug-of-war between supporting Russell and trying to defuse the escalating situation. Doris, we didn't come here to cause trouble, we just wanted to enjoy a peaceful dinner, I said, attempting to reason with her. A peaceful dinner with the likes of you? I don't think so. It's quite amusing to see you both here, practically begging to be let in after everything that's happened, she shot back smugly. What are you talking about, Mum? We've always loved this place, and now you're saying we're not welcome? Russell exclaimed, incredulous. It's simple. When you chose to marry this person against my wishes, I had to make a decision. I couldn't allow my son to make such a dreadful mistake, so I decided to protect my business from your poor choices, Doris explained coldly. You're sick, Mum. It's disgusting that you're doing this on purpose just to spite us, Russell accused, his voice thick with dismay. Oh, please, Russell, I'm just looking out for my reputation. I can't have people like you associated with my business, Doris dismissed him. This is ridiculous. Mom, you're choosing your bigotry over your son. I thought you were better than this, Russell lamented, hurt clear in his voice. You're the one who chose this path, Russell. Don't blame me for your decisions, Doris retorted sharply. As she spoke, the eyes of every diner in the restaurant were fixed on us, casting an uncomfortable spotlight. It was deeply embarrassing to be escorted out of Applebee's, a place we once frequented with ease. Let's just leave, arguing won't change her mind, I suggested quietly, eager to escape the mounting tension. You're right, Janice, it's not worth it, Russell replied, disappointment etched across his face. And don't come back, no one wants you here, Doris shouted after us, her voice dripping with disdain. We stepped outside and began wandering aimlessly down the street. Russell was visibly upset, so I encouraged him to express his feelings, especially regarding his connection to Applebee's. Let it all out, Russell, how are you really feeling? I know Applebee's was more than just a restaurant for you. Applebee's? It was a place where my dad and I bonded. We'd sit by the window, order our favorite meals, and just talk for hours about everything. It's where we connected, he explained, his voice heavy with loss. It sounds like such a meaningful place for you, and I can't believe Doris would use it to hurt you like this, especially knowing how much those moments with your dad meant. It's just so unfair. She knows how special Applebee's is to me, yet she chose to weaponize it against us simply because she disapproves of our marriage. You deserve so much better than this, Russell. I wish I could fix it. It's awful to see someone trying to dismantle what we have. I always thought family was meant to support each other, not tear each other apart. It's hard to understand why she behaves this way, but sometimes people let their biases cloud their judgment. We may not be able to change that, but we can choose how we respond, I reassured him. You're right, I'm done letting her negativity affect us. What matters is that we have each other. Exactly, we'll face this together, and actually, I have some news that might brighten your day. What's that? He asked, curiosity peaking despite the somber mood. Well, it turns out my dad recently acquired the entire block of buildings on this street, including Applebee's. Really? Why didn't you mention this before? It just happened. He finalized the deal with the investors recently. I was still grappling with how everything would unfold. I had planned to share the news about my dad owning the complex during a celebratory dinner at the restaurant. That's incredible, Janice. I need to congratulate him later, Russell said, genuinely impressed. We can do that later, but right now, there's something else we need to discuss about your mom, I replied, hinting at a more immediate concern. You see, my dad is quite formidable when it comes to business matters. He won't take kindly to how Doris treated us. He's going to handle this situation. Feeling a mix of urgency and necessity, I decided to call my dad right then and put him on speakerphone so Russell could listen in. I explained everything that had happened at Applebee's. My dad was upset by the news. I knew Doris wasn't fond of you, but to kick you out of a restaurant? That's a new low. I'm sorry I hadn't reviewed the document sooner. I only recently received the title deeds for this property, and I haven't had the chance to evaluate all the managers yet, but rest assured, I'll take care of this immediately, he reassured us. Don't worry at all, give me 20 minutes, and I'll be there to sort this out personally. Hearing my dad's determined words brought me a sense of relief, though also a twinge of concern. I knew he could handle the situation, but I hoped it wouldn't escalate into something messier. My dad isn't someone to be trifled with, especially in business, and he firmly believes in treating customers with fairness and compassion. So Russell and I waited anxiously near the restaurant, trusting that my dad would resolve the issue appropriately. We weren't sure exactly what he planned to do, but we believed in his judgment. Moments later, my dad arrived, and we followed him back into Applebee's. He walked in with a confident stride, ready to take on whatever needed to be done. As he entered, he called out for Doris loud enough for everyone inside to hear. The tension in the restaurant was palpable as heads turned to watch the unfolding scene. Doris stepped forward, visibly annoyed by the interruption. She probably thought she could dismiss my father as easily as she had dismissed us, but my dad is not one to be brushed aside lightly. He raised an eyebrow at her and began with a tone of faux concern. Doris, my dear, it seems you haven't been keeping up with the latest developments. Did they forget to inform you about the new owner of the Second Green Avenue complex? Doris looked visibly shaken, clearly caught off guard by the unexpected news. What are you talking about? Who is it? She stammered, confusion lacing her voice. My dad couldn't suppress a small knowing smile. Well, that would be me. I'm the new owner, and I must say, in less than a week, I've already received troubling complaints about your management. Doris's complexion paled as the reality of her predicament sank in. I didn't know that, she muttered, flustered. Well, perhaps if you had checked your emails or paid closer attention to what's happening around you, you might have known, but it's too late for apologies now, my dad replied with a chuckle. It was satisfying to see Doris on the receiving end of the treatment she had so freely dished out to us. Russell, who had been quietly seething at my side, stepped forward and said firmly, "You had no right to treat us, or anyone, the way you did, especially Janice. We've always known you harbored ill will, but as someone managing a public establishment, you should have been the first to understand that discrimination based on personal prejudices is unacceptable. You've clearly violated that principle, and I don't think you're fit to manage this place." Doris, now desperate, pleaded, "Wait, I'm sorry, I didn't realize. Even if you didn't know he was the owner, you should have treated all customers fairly without letting your personal biases interfere," I added firmly. "Please, let's discuss this privately." Doris tried to salvage the situation. "There's no need," my dad interjected, his voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "I believe everyone here would be interested to know that the person managing Applebee's, who allowed her racism to affect her professional duties, is no longer part of the staff." The murmurs in the restaurant grew louder, fueled by the unfolding drama. Doris, utterly embarrassed, stood in silence as she faced the consequences of her actions. Russell and I watched, relieved that justice was finally being served. We couldn't help but feel a mix of relief and triumph as my dad decisively handled the situation, warning her that he would call security to escort her out if she didn't leave voluntarily. Embarrassed and on the brink of tears, Doris began her walk of shame out of the restaurant. As she exited, the mood in the establishment lifted instantly. People began to clap and cheer, celebrating her departure. A profound sense of relief washed over me. Russell and I rushed over to my dad and gave him a big hug, grateful for his decisive intervention. "You're the best, Dad," I exclaimed with a smile, and he chuckled, giving us both a reassuring pat on the back. "It was my pleasure, my dear. I couldn't stand by and watch you two suffer because of her," he replied, his warmth enveloping us. Dad excused himself to check on the kitchen staff and find the next in command to appoint as the acting manager amidst the upheaval. He returned shortly after, explaining that he had important business matters to finalize, including formally terminating Doris and organizing the paperwork for the new acting manager. "Okay, my work here is done for now. You two enjoy your meal on the house," he said, signaling for us to take a seat and relax. As we settled down at a table, a whirlwind of emotions enveloped me. I was still processing the swift turn of events, amazed at how quickly everything had escalated. Yet above all, I felt incredibly grateful for my dad's support and the strength he provided us through this challenging time. It was comforting to know that, no matter what, we had someone on our side, ready to step in when needed. At long last, the day had come, a day I had long anticipated. It was time to escape the constant sight of your face and the freeloaders who had contributed nothing while taking so much. They should have been grateful for the generosity they had received over the years. With determination, I announced, "I won't be coming back. Thank you for everything up to this point." I quickly gathered my essentials and bid farewell to the house that had been my home for so long. As I stepped outside, I caught a glimpse of satisfaction on my mother-in-law's face, unaware of the poignant secret I carried with me. I am Megan, 35 years old, working remotely from home. I've been married to Charles for 6 years. Our marriage faced challenges in its 5th year when Charles's once healthy father fell seriously ill, requiring constant care. Initially reluctant to move in with my in-laws, I agreed out of necessity. Charles was their only family member capable of providing support. Though I considered quitting my job to care for his father full-time, my company allowed me to continue working remotely, recognizing my strong performance. Living with my in-laws brought immediate challenges, thrusting me into the classic tensions between a mother-in-law and her daughter-in-law. "Megan, hurry up and take care of the cooking and cleaning. How long will you be lazy and avoid your responsibilities?" my mother-in-law would chide. "I'm working right now. What do you mean? I'm always just clicking away at the computer," I would snap back. While juggling household chores and caring for my ailing father-in-law, I focused on leveraging my skills and, after 4 months of hard work, managed to return to my previous salary. When my earnings finally matched their peak, I felt a surge of joy. Yet I was driven by a harsh financial reality. Charles's income alone wasn't enough to support us. Despite my hopes for a more peaceful future, the struggle continued, and I found myself considering setting aside some savings. As time passed, my financial issues seemed to multiply. It felt as if the money in my wallet was disappearing. Intrigued by this troubling trend, I scrutinized our expenses, only to discover that Charles had developed a penchant for unnecessary luxuries. Additionally, my mother-in-law had a flair for the extravagant, often indulging in lavish hobbies and social outings. Charles, eager to please, frequently used our credit cards not only for work-related lunches but also for extravagant parties with friends. Meanwhile, the responsibility of household chores and caring for my father-in-law fell solely on my shoulders. I was pouring nearly all my income into our living expenses, making the idea of saving money seem like a distant dream. Concerned about our dwindling finances, I decided it was time to address the issue. "Charles, it seems we've been spending excessively," I began cautiously. "If this continues, we could deplete our savings entirely. Can we please consider cutting back on our expenses?" Their response was anything but understanding. Charles retorted, "I don't want to seem stingy in front of my colleagues and subordinates. Can't you understand that? I get that maintaining good relationships with your coworkers is important, but you don't have to cover their expenses every time." I reasoned. "What about those nights out at bars? Surely that has nothing to do with work." They dismissed my concerns outright, leaving me frustrated and anxious about our financial future. As I struggled to balance household needs with ongoing financial irresponsibility, it became increasingly clear that I had to find a way to rein in the spending or risk serious financial turmoil. I confronted Charles. "It feels like you just want to have fun, doesn't it? You come home drunk and start talking about your outings, even when no one asks. It seems like you enjoy those times more than being with me." I could no longer hide my frustration. My mother-in-law, however, merely laughed off my concerns and sided with Charles. "I'm glad Mom understands, and she's right," Charles agreed, filled with confidence. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law justified her spending. "If I didn't go to my classes, I'd be stuck at home all day. I take these classes with my friends to enjoy my time." I struggled to reconcile their harsh words, which echoed endlessly in my mind. They labeled me a terrible daughter-in-law, criticizing me for not earning an income, despite my dedication to managing the household and caring for my father-in-law. In their eyes, this made me unworthy of voicing any complaints, an idea that baffled me. Despite their judgment, I knew the truth. I was diligently working from home, contributing a steady income while balancing housework and caregiving. Their skepticism and condescending attitudes toward my remote work were disheartening. To add insult to injury, my mother-in-law had spun a narrative that painted her as the sole caregiver for my father-in-law, casting me as a lazy homemaker. This twisted perception of my role left me feeling speechless and pained by the injustice. Throughout the countless times I contemplated leaving this difficult situation, my deep concern for my father-in-law kept me grounded. From the early days of my marriage, he had treated me with genuine kindness, a stark contrast to the treatment I received from Charles and my mother-in-law. His sincere expressions of gratitude, often calling me a wonderful daughter-in-law, deeply touched my heart. Whenever he needed care, he would apologize for the inconvenience, always expressing appreciation for my dedication. These moments brought me solace and a strong sense of purpose. I couldn't bear the thought of leaving him at the mercy of Charles and my mother-in-law. My father-in-law had an acute awareness of our family dynamics and truly recognized my contributions, not only in caregiving but also in maintaining the household's financial stability. His words of appreciation weren't just comforting, they fortified me, providing the strength to endure an environment that often felt hostile. While I feared what might happen to our household without my stabilizing presence, my greater concern was for the well-being of my beloved father-in-law. Thus, I resolved to remain by his side, offering dedicated care until the end. A year later, his funeral became an emotional battleground for me. In the midst of my profound grief, my tears were met with cold disapproval, compounding the weight of my loss. This reaction highlighted the complexity of my situation, yet it also reaffirmed the importance of my role during his final days. "Why are you crying so much, Megan? He's gone now. Isn't it natural to mourn like this?" I was questioned. My response seemed to irk my mother-in-law even more. She accused me of implying that she had never cared for him. However, the truth was quite different. She had largely been absent in his caregiving. Her focus on hobbies and frequent social outings meant the bulk of the responsibilities fell squarely on my shoulders. Despite my efforts, she portrayed herself as the pitiful mother-in-law to those outside our immediate family, casting me as the harsh and cruel daughter-in-law to our relatives. This narrative suggested I was being unfairly hard on her. Even as I grieved, I found myself criticized by those who had little understanding of the true dynamics within our household. Out of frustration, I began to distance myself from my relatives, a shift that Charles quickly noticed. He confronted me, saying, "You embarrassed Mom in front of everyone." I was taken aback by this accusation. "That doesn't make any sense," I replied. "I was simply crying over the loss of my father-in-law." "But your mom found it strange how much you cried." "I never said she didn't care for him at all. I was just expressing my sorrow for someone I deeply loved." As our argument escalated, Charles accused me of insulting his mother and suggested that if my grief upset me so much, I should reconsider my actions. I defended myself, insisting that my tears were solely for my father-in-law, whom I cherished, not a critique of anyone else. After his passing, the tension between Charles and me intensified. culminating in a fierce argument that required intervention from our relatives to diffuse. In the aftermath, I chose to remain silent towards Charles as the funeral proceedings continued. Shortly thereafter, a lawyer arrived to discuss the will and the distribution of the estate. "I'd like to review the contents of your late father's will," the lawyer began. "First, to his wife and daughter-in-law Megan, he has left half of his cash assets to each of you. To his son Charles, he has left the family land and home." My mother-in-law immediately interjected, "If Charles gets the land and the house, why is Megan receiving an inheritance? She isn't related by blood." The lawyer replied, "Your husband was deeply grateful for the dedicated care Megan provided. He wanted to express his appreciation by including her in the inheritance. This decision is final and cannot be changed." Unable to accept this, my mother-in-law accused me. "I can't believe it. You were only caring for him to get the inheritance, weren't you?" I had a good relationship with my father-in-law since marrying into this family. I defended myself. I cared for him out of love and respect, grateful for how he treated me. Despite her relentless accusations, suggesting that my care was a form of psychological manipulation, my mother-in-law eventually ran out of steam. The lawyer reaffirmed, "That was your father's decision." This moment vindicated my genuine affection and care for my father-in-law, confirming that his gratitude toward me was both real and legally recognized, despite the bitter suspicions from others. As the lawyer confirmed the terms of the will, expressing gratitude for my dedicated care, I noticed my mother-in-law's discontented expression shift into a smile. "Yes, that's great, I understand," she exclaimed with a nod. Confused, Charles asked her, "What do you mean?" It seemed strange for her to change her stance so suddenly. With a sense of satisfaction, she explained, "Now that Dad's gone, we don't need to rely on Megan anymore. Her inheritance is just like severance pay. We don't need her in this house." She had completely misunderstood my father-in-law's intentions, viewing the will as an opportunity to sever ties with me rather than a recognition of my contributions. Unbeknownst to her, this was precisely what my father-in-law had planned before his passing. He had confided in me his wish for me to be free from the constraints of living under the same roof as my in-laws. The will was designed not only as a gesture of gratitude but also as a clever ruse to facilitate my departure in a way that seemed natural to others, including deceiving Charles and my mother-in-law about his true intentions. My mother-in-law saw this as a chance to push me out of the family, seizing the moment while hiding my actual desire to leave. I feigned shock and sadness. "Father-in-law, why would you treat me like this?" I lamented, giving the impression that I was merely a caretaker in his eyes. Turning to Charles with tears in my eyes, I pleaded, "You can't understand me anymore, can you? Why don't you just divorce me?" After a moment's contemplation, swayed by the emotion I displayed and perhaps his mother's influence, Charles replied, "You know what? Let's get a divorce." This dramatic turn of events played right into the hidden plan my father-in-law and I had crafted, setting me on a path to regain my independence and start anew, away from the constraints and conflicts of my in-laws' home. After the reading of the will, Charles inherited the family home and land, while his mother received a portion of the cash. With these assets secured, Charles casually remarked, "There's no need to worry about living arrangements anymore, so it's okay if Megan leaves." "What do you mean by that?" I asked. Though I already knew what he intended, Charles replied, indifferent, "I hate to ask, but could you leave our house and agree to the divorce?" Realizing I had no place in their plans, I accepted the inevitable. "Understood. I guess there's no place for me here anymore." With a controlled calmness, I opened a drawer, retrieved a document, and handed it to him. It was a notice of filing for divorce, prepared soon after our last major argument. Charles quickly signed the document, relief evident on his face. "Finally, I don't have to deal with you anymore. A non-working freeloader should just get out. You should be grateful we put up with you." "Is that so? Okay, I understand. I'll leave. Thank you for everything up to now," I replied, masking my inner turmoil with a facade of gratitude. As I exited, my mother-in-law's face lit up with glee, blissfully unaware of what the future might hold for their household without me. Without hesitation, I submitted the divorce notice to City Hall the moment I stepped out of their home. When I arrived at the apartment I had secured in advance, I entered the spacious, empty room and reveled in the echo of my own voice. Finally, I can be by myself. This is great. Overwhelmed with joy, I embraced my newfound freedom, liberated from a marriage that had become increasingly stifling. Here, in this fresh space, I could start anew, embrace solitude, and rebuild my life on my terms. I owed a deep gratitude to my late father-in-law for devising a clever plan that enabled my escape from the oppressive environment of my in-laws' home. Settling into this newfound independence, I created a comfortable life on my own, cherishing the freedom to continue my remote work. This arrangement not only improved my time management skills but also boosted my productivity, leading to an increase in my income. I enjoyed a peaceful existence, free from external meddling, until an unexpected call from my ex-husband, Charles, shattered my tranquility. It had been a while since we last spoke, and I was taken aback. "Why are you calling me, Charles? Weren't you the one who wanted me out of your life?" I asked. "Megan, please help us. We're in a bind," Charles pleaded, his voice strained. I couldn't help but chuckle at the irony. "What kind of joke is this? My salary hasn't changed, yet suddenly you're out of money? How can you not manage?" With a mix of amusement and finality, I prepared to deliver a reality check. "That's because you no longer have my income to supplement yours. You squandered your entire salary on luxuries. Maybe it's time you and your mother learned some financial responsibility." Confused, Charles asked, "What do you mean?" "You still don't get it," I replied, emphasizing just how much they had relied on me without ever acknowledging it. Now they were facing the consequences of their financial irresponsibility, a bitter lesson on the importance of prudence and planning. I clarified the situation for Charles. "While you were indulging in luxuries, my salary of about $6,500 a month was covering our living expenses. Now I'm earning even more, and I'm doing it all without anyone holding me back." Frustrated and perhaps realizing his predicament, Charles made a desperate plea. "Megan, can't we start over? It was a mistake to let you go. I want to make things right." I scoffed at his sudden change of heart. "It's clear you're just after my income. Don't be ridiculous. I never want to see your face again. What happened to the inheritance your mother received? She should be living comfortably with that." Charles confessed. "It's about to run out. We spent it on a shopping spree, went on overseas trips, and lost half of it in the casino." Unmoved, I shot back. "A foolish mother breeds a foolish son. I have nothing more to say to you. I'm a stranger now, and I can't help you, nor do I want to." Desperate, Charles implored, "Don't be so heartless. Help me. This has nothing to do with me. There's nothing more to discuss. I'm hanging up. Don't call me again," I stated firmly before ending the call and promptly canceling the mobile phone contract I had been using. A year later, while passing by my former mother-in-law's house, I noticed it had been transformed into an empty lot, likely sold off due to their financial struggles. Unfazed, I continued with my life, enjoying my newfound free time attending a wine class I had long wanted to try. There, I met a man 3 years my senior who was serious about our relationship. After a year and a half of dating, we got married. He is an executive at a well-known company, humble despite his high salary, with a warm and wonderful character. We respect each other's careers, leading to a fulfilling married life. Reflecting on these changes, I can't help but feel that, in a way, this was a form of retribution, a gift from my father-in-law, allowing me to find true happiness and respect in a relationship. Hi there, I'm Kimberly, a freshly turned 29-year-old. Once upon a time, I made the less-than-wise choice of marrying a man with a suitcase full of issues, thinking, in my naive optimism, that love could cure anything. I thought I'd be the one to show him his own worth. Oh, how mistaken I was. Love is powerful, yes, but it isn't a magic spell that can make someone respect or care for themselves. My ex, let's call him Joseph, was deeply entangled in his parents' expectations. Not the regular, I want to make my parents proud type of thing, but an all-consuming need to please them, where their approval defined his self-worth. Then there were his parents, Mr. and Mrs. Ellis. They seemed only distantly interested in Joseph's life, leaving him constantly vying for their attention. It was heartbreaking to watch him try to fill the emotional void they left behind, a gap I knew I couldn't replace. The situation only worsened when Joseph began draining our savings on whatever extravagant thing his parents fancied. We're talking lavish gifts, luxury vacations, and costly splurges that felt more like attempts to buy their affection. Watching our money flow into Mr. and Mrs. Ellis's hands became a huge stressor in our relationship, causing endless arguments. Competing for his priorities felt like a losing battle, and the strain was overwhelming. Even amid the chaos, I cared deeply for Joseph. I hoped he could break free of his parents' expectations and find happiness on his own terms. But as time went on, it became painfully clear that my support alone couldn't counteract the pull they had on him. The breaking point, however, came unexpectedly. One evening, Joseph approached me with a look that hinted he had something serious to share. By then, I was used to the roller coaster, but I wasn't prepared for what came next. "Kimberly, there's something important I need to talk about," he started, his tone already tense. "What's going on?" I asked, trying to keep calm but feeling the tension build. "My parents are retiring soon, and I want to surprise them with a luxury vacation," he explained, his eyes lit with a mix of excitement and worry. "That sounds nice, but if we're talking about a big expense, it should come from your personal savings, not our joint funds," I replied, hoping we could avoid yet another financial clash. "I can't cover it all on my own. I was hoping we could use our savings, he admitted, looking at me hopefully. Joseph, if we can't comfortably afford it, maybe we should consider a smaller gift? I suggested, trying to keep us grounded. He bristled. You just don't understand. I love my parents and want to give them something memorable. Love isn't about counting every dollar. It's about grand gestures, he argued, his voice heated. But love also means building a future together, and that means financial stability too. This trip may mean a lot to them, but we have our own priorities, I reasoned. Joseph remained adamant. I have to do this for them. I thought you would understand, they mean everything to me. And you mean everything to me, Joseph, but we have to be realistic. We can't pour all our savings into this, I countered, searching for compromise. He snapped, calling me selfish, blind to the gesture's importance. Joseph, it's not about selfishness, it's about practicality. We can't blow $85,000 on this, I said, stunned at the amount he'd had in mind. When he casually mentioned that we'd make it back eventually, my patience broke. This was the breaking point. Really, Joseph? That's not how this works, I shot back, my sarcasm barely concealing my disbelief. Our views on love, responsibility, and financial priorities had finally reached a breaking point. As our voices escalated, so did the chaos around us. Objects flew, crashing and shattering, punctuating our intense argument. Amid the turmoil, Joseph dropped his ultimatum. If I couldn't support him, he wanted a divorce. I could see he expected me to panic, to cling to whatever was left of our marriage, but I didn't. Instead, I gathered every ounce of calm and strength I had and said, okay, Joseph, if that's what you want. The shock on his face was almost satisfying. He had anticipated tears, maybe even pleading, but all he saw was my unyielding stance. I was done enabling his fantasies. If he wanted to waste his future in a constant chase for validation from his parents, he was free to do so, without me. I made it clear that his endless need for his parents' approval was as futile as trying to shield oneself from a storm with an umbrella. He tried to interrupt, but I raised a hand, signaling I was finished with this exhausting fight. I explained how worn down I felt battling for a love that seemed more directed at his parents' expectations than at us. Go ahead, Joseph, spend everything chasing people who hardly notice, I said, resolute, determined to end the cycle of disappointment and misplaced priorities. At that moment, reality hit him. The harsh truth of our relationship finally settled, and we both knew it was time to call a truce and part ways. A month has passed since our divorce was finalized, and the freedom I feel now is incredible. Gone are the days of desperate approval seeking, endless arguments over finances, and trying to live up to expectations I never stood a chance of fulfilling. Each day now feels lighter and brighter. Joseph has attempted to re-enter my life, cloaked in concern and questions about my well-being, but I can see through the pretense. I won't be drawn back into that trap again. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. I firmly declined his efforts to revive what was gone. It dawned on me how much I'd invested in trying to change someone who didn't want to grow. I needed to focus on my own joy. Rebuilding wasn't easy. Dividing assets and adjusting to a new financial reality required patience. I was used to a certain lifestyle, but adapting came naturally. With hard work, I was slowly rediscovering my independence. Reconnecting with old friends, reigniting hobbies I'd neglected, and exploring new interests made life feel full again. I embraced this fresh start. Despite the doubts and occasional loneliness, healing takes time, and getting used to a new budget was challenging. But each day, I felt reassurance in knowing I wasn't sacrificing my happiness to appease someone else's insecurities. Perhaps the ease with which I moved forward was a sign that I'd clung to a lost cause for far too long. It was surprising how much I could achieve without the weight of that burden. So here I am, a month later, still adjusting but thriving nonetheless. Joseph's attempts to contact me took on a new tone. Now he was casting himself as the protagonist of a tragic story, claiming to be in danger and pleading for a meeting. Growing weary of his messages, I decided it was time to face this head-on. In the middle of his latest series of frantic messages, I called him. Joseph, we've talked about this. We're divorced now. It's time to let go and move forward, I said firmly. Kimberly, please, I just need a chance to explain. I'm in serious trouble, and I have no one else to turn to, he pleaded. Maybe it was the unfamiliar sound of his voice, or perhaps there was a trace of real fear in it, but against my better judgment, I agreed to meet him. Fine, but not at my place. Let's meet at that cafe we used to go to. No games, Joseph, understood? Thank you, Kimberly, I swear, I just need someone to listen. You're the only one who gets me, he replied, his voice flooded with relief. I know what you're thinking, Kimberly. Why meet with Joseph after all of this? Believe me, I questioned it myself, but sometimes, a mix of curiosity and lingering concern pushes us to give in, if only for closure. part of me still cared, divorced or not. So there we were, seated across from each other in that cozy cafe, the familiar scent of coffee thick in the air, but even the comforting aroma couldn't ease the tension between us. I watched Joseph with his anxious, pleading eyes. It was almost amusing to see him trying to pull on my heartstrings again. This time, though, I was fully in control. Leaning back, I kept my expression calm. All right, Joseph, you've got my attention. What's this danger you're supposedly in? Just so we're clear, I'm done playing the hero here. I'm not here to bail you out again. Joseph let out a shaky breath. Regret and desperation etched across his face. I could see he wanted sympathy, but I steeled myself against any emotional pull. I know I've messed up, Kimberly, but this time, it's serious. I've gotten involved with the wrong people. I owe them a lot of money, and they're not exactly patient, he admitted, his voice barely a whisper. I raised an eyebrow, more than a little skeptical. Oh really? Dangerous people? Is this going to be another story about your so-called friends who always seem to invite trouble? I couldn't hide my disbelief. His face clouded with frustration and hurt, clearly hoping for a more sympathetic response. No, Kimberly, this isn't made up. I'm in real trouble, and I came to you because I have no one else, he insisted, his desperation palpable. Let me guess, after the divorce, things spiraled, and now you're in debt. Was it that trip you wanted so badly to give your parents? I asked, voice rising in spite of myself, drawing curious glances from nearby tables. I gave them an apologetic look, trying to calm myself. Joseph looked down, defeated. Yeah, I got caught up in something stupid, but now it's bigger than anything I can handle alone, he admitted, his gaze pleading for understanding. My frustration boiled over. How could he barge back into my life with yet another crisis? But beneath the anger, a small part of me felt a lingering sympathy. How much are we talking about? I asked, bracing myself. $45,000, he said, almost in a whisper. 45,000? Joseph, are you out of your mind? My outburst drew more stares, but this time I didn't care. Anyone in my shoes would likely react the same way. Please, Kimberly, I'm begging you. I know I've made a mess of things, but you're the one person who really believed in me, he pleaded, his eyes reflecting a glimmer of the person I once loved. But those days were gone, and my priority was now my own well-being. Don't even try that with me, Joseph. It's far too late for heartstrings. When you asked for help, I didn't expect it to be this reckless. 45,000? You've completely lost touch with reality, I said, my voice a mixture of shock and disbelief. Overwhelmed, Joseph began to cry, oblivious to the looks from nearby patrons. Joseph, calm down. This isn't the place for a scene. What happens if you don't pay? I asked, needing to understand the full extent of his situation. They're threatening me, Kimberly. I'm not exaggerating. I'm genuinely in danger, he managed between sobs. Recognizing the gravity, I softened slightly. All right, Joseph, start from the beginning. Tell me what's really going on, I urged. Slowly, he recounted the story, describing how he'd taken a reckless loan to finance the extravagant trip he'd planned for his parents, expecting a friend to cover him. When that friend bailed, he was left with an enormous debt and a dangerous lender. Listening, I felt a flood of mixed emotions, anger at his choices, but also a strange sense of irony. So let me get this straight, you went into debt with shady people, all to impress your parents, the same people who barely acknowledge you, I said, my tone laced with exasperation. Joseph's face fell, tears tracing down his cheeks as he admitted the painful truth. Yeah, it's as if I don't exist to them since they got back, he confessed, the remorse thick in his voice. Despite everything, I couldn't ignore the hint of sympathy I felt for him. This was a painful reality check, and Joseph had to confront the consequences of his actions head-on. Joseph, I know the last thing you want to hear is, I told you so, but this was inevitable. I warned you it wasn't wise. You even chose to end our marriage over it, and now, here you are, facing the fallout. You invested everything seeking their approval, only to be met with silence. It's a hard lesson, but it's one you needed to learn, I said, my words heavy with both regret and resolve. It was clear to both of us that this moment was a turning point. Joseph had tied his self-worth to people who couldn't appreciate his sacrifices, and I finally had to accept that I couldn't protect him from himself. I had hoped that facing these consequences would make him realize I had always been on his side, that his need for approval had been his undoing. The weight of our past, of broken promises and lost dreams, hung heavy in the silence between us, and I realized it was time to let go. No more chances, no more attempts to fix what couldn't be mended. Joseph needed to face this on his own, and I had to pursue my peace elsewhere. I hope you find a way through this, Joseph, I said quietly, surprised by the finality in my own voice. He looked at me, wide-eyed. So, you're not going to help? What? No, Joseph, I can't help you. Why not? Because I don't have the resources to bail you out, and even if I did, there's no way I'd take on a lifetime of debt to fix your mistakes. I have to be responsible, for both of us, I replied, my patience thinning. Please, Kimberly, I'm begging you, he persisted, desperation sharpening his tone. Joseph, expecting me to step in and clean this up is unrealistic, I said firmly. You're my ex-wife, not my enemy, he shot back, still clinging to hope, but our paths had diverged too far, and my journey was now about finding stability, free from the chaos that once held us both back. And that's the issue, Joseph. You assume I'll always be there to fix your mistakes because I used to, but I can't, and shouldn't, keep doing that. I don't owe you anything, not after how our hard-earned money went to people who couldn't appreciate it, I said, my voice resolute. It's because I love them, Kimberly. Maybe so, but I love myself too, and part of that is protecting my peace. Joseph's gaze fell. He understood now that I wasn't going to rescue him this time. If you're out of options, here's my advice, leave, go somewhere far where they can't find you, and if you can't do that, then I don't know what you expect from me. His silence shifted, an edge of irritation creeping in as he realized my stance wasn't budging. It's time for us to part ways, Joseph, we both deserve a life free from this cycle of turmoil, I said, hoping he'd understand. If you really cared, you'd help me, he muttered bitterly. Goodbye, Joseph, I'm changing my number, I replied, standing to leave. As I walked away, Joseph remained seated, his face clouded with a mix of emotions. I knew this was the right step, however difficult, for the sake of my happiness and self-respect. On the day we were supposed to begin our honeymoon, I was blindsided when he handed me divorce papers instead, announcing that he was taking his entire family on what was supposed to be our trip. He coldly added that if I objected, we could just go our separate ways. My anger simmered beneath the surface, but I managed to respond calmly, fine, but remember that I am still my own person. The shock on his face gave me a fleeting sense of triumph. I'm Samantha, 37 years old, and I work in real estate, a career that I genuinely love and find fulfilling. I'm fortunate to have supportive colleagues, but despite my professional success, my personal life feels lackluster. I don't have any hobbies, and I've never been in a relationship. As my friends settled into marriage in their 30s, I found myself feeling increasingly anxious about being one of the few still single. It didn't help that many of my younger colleagues were leaving the company, deepening my sense of loss. Then, through a mutual friend, I met Daniel, 3 years younger than me. He had a warm smile that instantly put me at ease. Though he was a man of few words, he listened intently, ensuring that my opinions mattered in any decisions we faced. Lacking relationship experience, I quickly developed feelings for him. When I broached the subject of marriage, Daniel agreed without hesitation. Marriage is a major life choice, involving plans for a wedding, honeymoon, and a shared home. I was eager for us to navigate these decisions together, but Daniel always deferred to me, never sharing his thoughts. This began to make him seem less reliable and more distant. My dissatisfaction with him grew, especially regarding my future mother-in-law, who couldn't be more different from Daniel's easygoing nature. She was domineering, often disregarding my views while imposing her own. Samantha, once you're married, you'll quit your job and focus on the home, right? You're not getting any younger, and if you don't hurry, you might struggle to have kids. Daniel is working hard, so as a woman, you should concentrate on the family. It's a wife's duty to support her husband, she declared during one of our first encounters. Clinging to outdated beliefs, she assumed that I would take on the household responsibilities while Daniel worked. Ironically, I earned more than he did, a detail he didn't mind sharing with his parents, though his mother looked down on it. A woman who earns more than a man isn't charming. Can you even manage household chores? A wife should cook, clean, do laundry, and care for her husband's health. Can you do that? She challenged, clearly underestimating me. In reality, I had been living independently for years, managing all my household responsibilities effectively. I had no intention of quitting my job after marriage. I wanted to balance both my personal and professional life, prioritizing my needs along with Daniel's. Yet, whenever my mother-in-law criticized me, Daniel offered no defense. He simply nodded in agreement, which planted seeds of doubt about his reliability as a lifelong partner. This lack of support left me uneasy about our future together and whether I could truly count on him when it mattered most. Though Daniel was younger, I sometimes hoped he would mature into a more dependable partner as he aged. A part of me feared that if this marriage didn't work out, I might never marry at all. My mind was a constant tug-of-war between anxiety and longing, caught in an endless struggle as time marched forward without mercy. With so many decisions looming for the wedding, from picking a honeymoon destination to scheduling time off work, my to-do list seemed to grow ever longer, amplifying my unease. Amid the chaos of balancing work and wedding plans, I decided it was time to discuss our arrangements with Daniel. Considering our work schedules, I suggested we plan our honeymoon for a specific period, as it might be our only chance for an extended vacation together. Should we consider taking our honeymoon during this time? I asked. Yeah, that sounds good to me, Daniel replied easily. It felt like a rare opportunity for us, as we both would be free from work commitments. However, the wedding venue I had always dreamed of was booked for over a year. Faced with this dilemma, I proposed an unconventional solution. What do you think about going on our honeymoon before the wedding? I've heard some people do that. If we wait for the wedding first, it will be 3 more years before we can take the trip, I explained. If you're okay with it, Samantha, then I'm fine with it too, Daniel said without hesitation. I was relieved that he didn't object to my suggestion, yet his easy agreement felt bittersweet. He seemed to accept my opinions without question. While I appreciated the lack of opposition, I also longed for him to share his thoughts more often. Still, I found comfort in knowing we could move forward without conflict for now. Seizing the opportunities as they came, I pressed on with the arrangements for our honeymoon and wedding. Eventually, we settled on Europe for our honeymoon, but I had been torn between Florida and Europe right up until the last moment. Florida was closer, and I thought we could always visit another time. However, the allure of Italy and Spain won out, and I was eager to explore their stunning streets and indulge in the exquisite cuisine. I also looked forward to shopping for stylish accessories and special tableware to celebrate the beginning of our new life together. After meticulously coordinating our schedules and destinations, I finalized all the arrangements about a month before our departure. My excitement was at an all-time high. This was my first overseas trip, and I was buzzing with enthusiasm, my mind filled with thoughts of travel essentials and planning our activities in Europe. Amid this excitement, any previous frustrations I had with Daniel seemed to fade away. However, just a week before our honeymoon, Daniel surprised me with an unexpected request. It was rare for him to voice such things, so my curiosity was piqued. Perhaps he had found a specific place he wanted to visit in Paris. What's on your mind? I asked, eager to hear what he had to say. In an almost innocent manner, Daniel expressed his wish. I want to go to Finch Melody Auditorium when we're in Paris. Mom wants to go there, he said. I was taken aback. Your mother-in-law? Wait, what do you mean? I stammered, struggling to understand this sudden shift in plans. To Daniel, it seemed perfectly logical. Well, since everyone else is going, he explained, as if it were simply a matter of course, leaving me grappling with this unexpected change. As we discussed the trip, Daniel casually dropped another bombshell. We'll all be together during the trip, right? He said, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. What do you mean, everyone? It's our honeymoon. It should just be the two of us, I replied, bewildered. Daniel, however, remained unfazed. My mom thinks it's normal for the whole family to come along. I was floored. Daniel, I only made reservations for 2, just you and me. The booking deadline was a week ago. Today is the last day to confirm our plans, and I only registered us, I said, struggling to maintain my composure. It might still be possible for the whole family to join if you talk to the travel agency. They could sort something out, Daniel suggested optimistically. Before I could respond, the intercom buzzed. I saw my in-laws on the screen. Without waiting for an invitation, they barged into the house, dragging several bags behind them. My mother-in-law's eyes sparkled with excitement as she announced, I thought I'd drop off the luggage here since we're leaving soon. I'm so excited. Daniel quickly took charge of the situation. Just leave the luggage here, he said, ushering them into the room without so much as asking for my approval. Wait a minute, I interjected, trying to halt the chaos, but my mother-in-law shot me a sharp look. What's the matter, Samantha? I hope you're not saying you don't want us all to go together, she challenged. I never agreed to go together in the first place, I shot back, but she dismissed my response. You heard her, she just said no, she declared dismissively, then turned to Daniel, coaxing him. But you always thought we would go together, right? Yeah, Daniel replied simply, backing his mother's assumption. My mother-in-law seized on his agreement, continuing to undermine me. It's perfectly normal for the husband's parents to go on the honeymoon. Don't you have common sense? This left me questioning not only the trip but also the very foundation of our relationship. As the situation escalated, my mother-in-law attempted to smooth over the tension with a troubling comment. I hope you won't ruin the trip with any unpleasant experiences. It's a special honeymoon after all, and we want to create good memories, right? I'll make sure to teach you some common sense this week before we leave, she said, treating it as a given that she and the rest of the family would be joining us. Feeling my frustration boil over, I countered, this is a honeymoon, you know, it's supposed to be just the husband and wife. I understood that if I caved to my mother-in-law's demands now, it would set a terrible precedent for our future. I was determined to avoid that situation at all costs. Yet she remained unyielding, dismissing my concerns outright. It's just common sense for the husband's parents to join the honeymoon. I can't believe you wouldn't want to be with us. I thought we were becoming a family, but it seems we have different ideas about common sense. You don't seem to like me, and nothing matches up. How sad, she lamented, her tone dripping with insincerity, eyebrows furrowing in a feigned display of disappointment. Her words, especially the "how sad," felt like an attempt at manipulation, and even Daniel, without a moment's hesitation, sided with her. Samantha, what's wrong with you? They're my parents. It's perfectly fine for us to go on the honeymoon together, right? It's not possible, I replied firmly. We've already booked reservations for just 2 people. Plus, I've never heard of families joining a honeymoon. Daniel's response was heated, as if he were looking for a fight. I never realized you disliked my parents so much, Samantha, he exclaimed. Then, dismissing the discussion with a cold tone, he added, that's enough, just leave for today. His incredulous gaze made me feel as though my stance was incomprehensible. A sly smile spread across my mother-in-law's face as I stood there, bewildered and hurt, wondering why Daniel always sided with her without considering my feelings, especially during such a critical moment. As I stepped outside, I felt utterly abandoned, the door slamming shut behind me. In that fleeting moment, I caught a glimpse of my mother-in-law's triumphant expression, a look that celebrated her victory. Alone and disoriented, I questioned why I was being portrayed as the antagonist and why this special trip, along with everything else, felt doomed. Overwhelmed by frustration and sadness, tears streamed down my face. A few hours later, my phone buzzed with a message from Daniel. I want you to check if it's still possible for my parents to join the tour. If not, we'll cancel this trip and find one that we can all go on. Please think rationally and reconsider. We can sort this out if you do. His words stung. There was no acknowledgement of my feelings, only a cold push for rationality. As he perceived it, he didn't contact me again after that message, and as time passed, I sensed that he was likely just as upset as I was. Despite everything, the day we were supposed to leave for our honeymoon arrived. I was in no mood to celebrate, but after spending a month preparing, I couldn't just walk away. As I was getting ready, the intercom rang. It was Daniel coming to pick me up. We hadn't seen each other since the heated confrontation, and I was unsure how to act around him. His arrival suggested he still intended to go on the trip, but oddly, he carried no luggage. Instead, he held a set of divorce papers. You still planned to go on this trip after hurting my parents, didn't you? He accused, disappointment heavy in his voice. I'm taking my whole family on this honeymoon. If you don't like it, let's get a divorce. His words were a chilling conclusion to our conflict, leaving no room for discussion. It was clear that, in his eyes, familial bonds outweighed our relationship, and his mother's influence was decisive. Caught between heartbreak and disbelief, I stood frozen, realizing that my marriage was ending before it had even begun. Daniel presented the divorce papers with an unsettling finality. My mom said it would be better this way. In that moment, the stark reality of who he truly was crystallized before me. I had always imagined he would listen to me, value my feelings, and show kindness. Instead, it became glaringly obvious that he lacked conviction and prioritized his family's wishes over our relationship. As this understanding settled in, my feelings for him cooled significantly. The prospect of marrying him seemed increasingly futile, especially with his overbearing mother looming large. The future, if tied to them, appeared filled with endless compromises and disputes. Determined, I pointed at the divorce papers he had thrust before me, responding with a decisiveness that caught him off guard. Sure, but remember, I'm still single. Single? What do you mean? Daniel looked genuinely confused, his earlier composure slipping. Weren't you listening? We talked about going on the honeymoon but delaying the marriage registration until the day of the ceremony. I made sure to get your agreement, Daniel. You didn't forget, did you? The marriage certificate is still in the drawer. You even said, if you're fine with it, Samantha, then I'm fine too. That's right, divorce or not. We're not even married yet. There's no issue with me going on the honeymoon under my maiden name. Perhaps my words jolted a memory. Daniel's face momentarily flickered with recognition before turning crimson with frustration. Are you out of your mind to give up on marriage just because of a honeymoon? Get a grip, he exclaimed, matching my intensity with his own. I stood my ground. This is what rationality looks like. You've shown me where your priorities lie, and now I must protect my interests and well-being in this situation. This confrontation wasn't merely about a trip. It was a stand against losing myself and my autonomy in a marriage that was revealing itself to be built on conditional terms and expectations I simply could not accept. I had been so eager to get married that I had lost sight of reality. I realized I couldn't be happy marrying someone who didn't respect my opinions or offer support. I'd rather remain single for life. Thanks for helping me understand that haste truly makes waste. I declared, feeling the weight of that old saying resonate deeply within me. Hey, Samantha, let's calm down and start over, okay? Daniel pleaded, his voice trembling as if he were on the verge of tears, but his appeals no longer swayed me. My resolve had solidified. I was determined to break free from him. In a moment of clarity, I raised my voice. If you're so desperate for a family trip, why don't you go with your family of 3? But this time, you'll have to plan everything yourself, from the tour reservations to the itinerary. It's time you experience the difficulty firsthand after always relying on others. If you think you can handle it, then go ahead, you indecisive man. I pulled the marriage certificate from the drawer and tore it to shreds right in front of him. His mouth fell open, shocked by my actions and overwhelmed by my determination. Do you understand how serious I am now? I refuse to let my future be dictated by anyone else. It's over between us. Why don't you go back to your beloved mommy and cry to her, you mama's boy? I said, leaving a stunned Daniel behind as I slammed the front door shut. Given his demeanor, I could easily picture him seeking comfort from his mother. Afterward, I contacted the tour company to cancel our reservations. Although it was a same-day cancellation and I would incur a financial loss, the sense of liberation from prioritizing my well-being was worth every penny. Following the cancellation of our honeymoon, I decided to bill Daniel for the entire amount, as his actions had led to this fiasco. It seemed only fair under the circumstances. Later, Daniel attempted to shift the blame for our failed marriage onto me and even spread rumors among our circle of friends and co-workers. However, his efforts to garner sympathy backfired. His reputation as a mama's boy, an apt label based on his past behavior, didn't win him any friends. When I discussed the divorce with my parents, they were initially taken aback but quickly came around. They reminded me that marriage isn't the sole source of happiness. As long as you're happy, Samantha, that's what matters, they said. Their support provided great comfort during that turbulent time. On a brighter note, this entire ordeal reignited my passion for travel. It seemed a shame to let the opportunity for long vacations slip away, so I embarked on my first solo trip. Traveling alone to foreign destinations felt daunting at first, but it turned out to be incredibly fulfilling. I visited historic cities I had always dreamed of seeing and discovered that I actually enjoyed my own company. The experience of solo travel opened up a new realm of freedom and adventure for me. Thanks to these solo adventures, I've grown to love traveling on my own terms. I'm eagerly planning my next trip abroad for my upcoming break. This new chapter in my life is one where I am not defined by marriage or constrained by others' expectations. Instead, I am embracing a lifestyle where I can explore the world and myself freely.